Welcome back, or welcome if it's your first time. Everybody's welcome. Today was a special day, at least where I live. We had like the most snow we've ever had in like 7 years or something. It was pretty crazy. It's like probably 30 centimeters of snow or even more, like 50. Pretty crazy. So I'm gonna work via home office next or tomorrow, and I guess the whole week, maybe even next week. So I grabbed my laptop today and brought it back home. So now I can work via home office, and yeah, that's basically everything that's been going on today for me. Hope you had a great day as well. Of course. I hope you've been enjoying your day so far, and hopefully you can join me for some more creative stuff today. Of course, the first thing we'll do is our good old quick sketch, 30-minute quick sketch. If some do not know it, it's basically I pull up a random number generator, generate a number between 1 and 34, I think it was. And yep, 34. And the 34 is basically the amount of 3D scans I have in my library, which means I get randomly picked a 3D scan that I'm going to include in my quick sketch or daily quick sketch. And yep, that's the first thing we'll do. So I have my quick sketch thingy already. I mean, my random number generator already. Let me switch so you can see it. There you go. There it is. So, of course, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's see which one we'll get. Usually I always get like between 15 and 25. So it's something between there. I think I've never gotten something below 9. I think 9 was the lowest I've ever gotten. So let's see what we'll get today. Yeah, as you can see, 19. Okay, maybe we should do it like we generate 3 times or something. Maybe that's a better idea. I don't know if this has some sort of predictability to it, so that the first number is always higher than the average. Okay, 19. Let's see if that's a new one. We'll go in here, 3D scans, and we can see, let's just mark some. 19 elements, marble freeze. Oh, that's an interesting one, because I've used that before, not in a quick sketch, but in a video that's gonna come out on Wednesday, I think. That's just included in a, what do you call it, in a quick video where I made a Minecraft speedrun in Blender. Let's switch back to Blender. And what I basically just did is I made a speedrun in Blender building the Minecraft grass block as fast as I can. And my personal best now is 57 seconds. So sub 1 minute. That was pretty fun. Yeah, I made a small compilation out of that, and that should be up on Wednesday. So let's pull up my object, bring that into the scene. I also decided that I make these daily, as I said before, which means I will not only make them on stream, but also off stream. I usually keep them at like 1 hour, maybe a little bit longer if I'm not on stream. I want to keep them at half an hour on stream, half an hour creating the scene, and then 10 minutes or so for the post-production. And the ones I do off stream are going to be without these restrictions that I have to use a specific model in the scene. Of course, I could always just make this object like super small so you wouldn't really see it and then do whatever. That's not really like what I wanted to do. I wanted to rather actually build around that object, and I think that's a better challenge than just putting it somewhere in the scene. Let's pull it up. Which one was it? The freeze. There it is. So you can't see it now. It's getting imported. It's pretty big. There you go. I think the first time I pulled it up for the Minecraft speedrun video, Blender crashed. So we're lucky that it worked now. And one thing I noticed last time was that it has quite a few shaders. So I think what I'm gonna do is just not use the shader that's on there right now. Let's see if the shaders applied. Actually, should we use it? I mean, let's see what it, yeah, that's without. I think these shadows are baked in, basically part of the texture. But I think, let's see what it looks like without all that. Okay. I mean, we could work with that as well. See what we can come up with that. Yeah, I think I'm gonna do it without the textures to make it a little bit more interesting, because it can be pretty tricky working with these textures, especially if we have like 5 shaders. It could be pretty hard and can lead to some issues. So I'll do it without. Okay, I think I'm ready. Let's just activate some stuff or change some stuff. We will put the passes to UV. No, not UV. We will activate denoising data and also switch the output to EXR, and that should be everything we need. Okay. I think we're ready so far. Yeah, I think we're ready. Okay. So let me start my timer and then we have 30 minutes to get this done. Yeah, I think I haven't forgotten anything, so we should be good. Let me just pull up my thingy, put that into geometry. Okay, I'm ready. So 30-minute quick sketch in 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, so what I'll do first is I think I'm going to use this as a wall. Maybe a macro shot that I did before. So what I'll do is just go in here, grab an array modifier that's right there. Gonna put that to 0 because I want to put it above the current object. Nope, that's wrong. So apparently it's Y, like that, exactly. You can see, I think there's a small gap. Is there? No, there's actually not. So that's, oh, okay, there's an end, but that shouldn't be a big problem. What we can do is actually maybe put it to 1.2. Yeah, I think that should be good. We can fill this gap later. What I'll do next is to make it a little bit more interesting, because if we see the same subjects basically on this line that we see up here, it's kind of boring. So what I'll do is just go in here, change the X factor maybe to 0.1 should be good. Then I'll do that a few times like that. That should be good. Okay, so we have our base. What I'll do now is introduce a cube, scale that up so it fits the whole scene. Maybe put the anchor point to the bottom, scale it up, and scale it on the y-axis to make it thinner. Then we use this as our part of the wall that's currently missing. We just make it wider, and then we fill the whole part. I'm not gonna include these parts into the render. I'm just gonna use this part that I just filled up. So what I'll do now is go in here, and I'll also add a plane axis. That's gonna be the focus of the camera. Let me just rename that. Okay, so what we can do now is go in here to the camera, say constraints, damped track. The camera should track this empty called focus, if we switch that to the negative z-axis, you can see if I now move the focus, camera follows this focus point. And also if you say snap to, face, individual elements, move, rotate, scale, you can now use this empty, and it's gonna stay on the surface of this object. So I can just put it somewhere, maybe there. Then I'll pull this up. I have my second view right there. You can go into camera view. Now we can set it up properly. We can frame the image. So what I'll do is go to focal length, put that maybe to a higher number. Or actually, let's put it to a lower number, maybe 40. So it's pretty flat. We can then grab that. Oh, we have to deactivate snapping. Pull it closer. Change the focal point, maybe make it a little bit more centered, put it more to the center of the wall. Deactivate snapping and then frame it again. Maybe something like that. Let's see, maybe we can pull it a little bit more to the side so we have more room. More like that. Okay. Let's see what it looks like rendered. Looks like nothing. Nothing special. Let's save it real quick so we're not losing any progress. Quick sketch number 18. Quick sketch number 18. Put that in there. Rename that as well. Okay. Our progress is saved. Nice. Okay. So next up, we have our frame basically done. What I'll do now is add a few lights just to set the scene. First things first, we have to change the world lighting. That's the gray background basically. Let's put that to black. We don't need that. So it's pitch black now. What we can add is a light. I'll use a point light. Pull that back. Maybe put it to down there. So it's shining from the bottom. We can then increase the strength maybe to 200. That looks pretty good. We can then say it should use nodes right there. Now we can use the emission. Give it a different color. Let's see. I want to try if I use an image, what that looks like. We can plug in an image as the color for this point light. I've never tried it though, so let's see what happens. We go into my pictures. You won't see it. Let's use this one, I guess. Just something we just want a not a flat color, just a picture. Okay, nothing really happened, so we can maybe then use a color ramp. Maybe what happens if we... Yeah, I think a point lamp isn't really suited for what I wanted to do. Isn't it really too bad? Because you can just use a black body node that basically has a color range from red to blue from the temperature of the light, ranging from I think 0 to something very high, and basically ranging from 0 is red and it goes from red to orange, and then at some point it gets to blue, purple, and I think purple is the last color. We'll keep it at more like a maybe, let's see, 5K. Okay, that's white, so let's keep it at 2K. A nice orange. That looks pretty good. More, a little lower. Okay. We could maybe even decrease the power, maybe to 100. That looks better. Save it. We can then say the focus can stay that way, and we will introduce a second light. There it is. Use the spotlight, and we cannot change the shape, which isn't too bad. If we move it outwards, we can then say it should also drag a point. I'll make another one, a empty plain axis. Let's call this one light. And we have, how much time do we have left? 22 minutes or 22 and a half, pretty good. So we can actually take some more time and take it easy. So what I'll do is go in here, use this light, say this light should track to the light empty. Use -Z, and you can see it tracks this point. And now what I'll do is make a light maybe coming from that direction. Let's change this focus maybe later. What I'll do first, I will go in here and let's see. Let's increase the strength to something pretty high, maybe 1,000 first, maybe even more, 2,000, maybe even more, let's say 5,000. And now let's change the color just a little bit to get a nice touch of yellow in there, more like that, so we have some sort of daylight. It could also be blue, but I want to keep my image pretty orange or warm. We then use a plane, pull that out, go in here, say make 2 cuts right there and right there. We remove this plane, say faces, delete faces, and we have this hole. And what we can do with this is we can rotate it first, more like that, and I want to put it in front of the light right there. So you can see you get the shadow, and to make it a little more interesting than just a plane with a hole in it, I'm going to scale it up. So you get this window effect. Maybe change the direction a little bit. More to the top side, more like that. Okay. We should make it bigger on the outside so there's no light leaking from to the outside parts. Like that, okay. And let's see this from the camera view. Of course you can see it already, but if we want to see the frame and nothing else, we can just go to viewport, pass power 2, increase that, and you can see it looks, you can only see the frame that's visible for the camera. We could maybe change the framing a little bit. Maybe more like closer to the more like that maybe. Let's rotate this around. Okay. Maybe we can increase the strength a little bit more. 20 minutes left, so we have plenty of time. We can really think about this image and really do whatever we want with it. So let's move this a little bit to put it more to the side. Like that. We can then also select these two and make them a little bit longer. Also, what we can do, pull this a little bit higher, like that. Okay, now to give it some more atmosphere, first we'll save, just to be sure. We can go in here and use a cube, make it bigger, so it fills out the whole scene. That should be pretty good. Yeah, that should be enough. We can then make a new shader, switch this principled BSDF, delete it, and add a principled volume. We add that to the volume socket. We can then change this viewport display from, not visibility, viewport display, from display as textured to bounce. So we only have this box we can see through, and then we can change these settings. First thing we'll do, make it brighter and change the density to something pretty low, maybe 0.1, maybe even 0.05. or maybe even 0.025, just so we get this dust-like feeling in there, this atmosphere. And what we can also add is oh, we can actually do it in here. Yep, we can do a what is it called? A particle particle simulation. We can add that. We can then say all of the particles should spawn in the first frame, so all of them spawned right now. And then we can say they should spawn from the source, which is not the faces but the volume. So now they're inside of the cube. And last thing we'll have to change is the not physics. We go to render, select halo, switch that from halo to object. We can then add a new object, maybe a let's add a plane, pull that to the side, and what we'll do with this is give it some cuts, maybe like that. We can then scale it down. We make it really, really thin. Okay. And then we can go in here, select maybe this one. Or actually we can just go in here into the middle. Say random. This is the proportional editing. So if you select one of those, the edges or vertices or whatever you've selected will be affected depending on how close they are. As you can see, the circle determines which one will be affected. We can then maybe move it in a certain direction. Should be just move it somewhere, so it's like a random movement like that. Maybe even down, so we get some more structure in there. And also maybe just in some direction, so you get this weird shape. Doesn't really have to be like super detailed. What we can do now is maybe we'll just add a few more things to it. First thing that I'll do, just make this a nice curve like that, and maybe pull this one, this one down like that. Okay, that should be enough. This is our dust particle. What we'll do now is go in here into the particle settings from this cube and say render object, which object, instance object, which is the dust particle that we've just created. And as you can see, all these dust particles are in the air. Problem is, they are, if you look into the actually I think I have to change this to a different viewport display. I think we have to just keep it at solid, so otherwise we can't see the particle. So if you go in here now, you can see these particles. They're pretty small right now. We can change that by going into the particle properties again. Did I select the correct cube? Yes, I did. We switch to the render tab and say we can increase the scale. As you can see, the particles increase in size. We can also change the randomness, so some of them are smaller, some of them are bigger. Maybe put it to a nice 0.15. And then we can also increase the number, maybe to 5,000. That should be a good number. Also, maybe even more, let's put it to 7,000. And next thing we'll do is change the rotation so that it's pretty random. Right now all of them have the same rotation. They basically look like this one, so they all point in the green axis direction, which is the Y direction. To change that and make it random so it looks more natural, we can go into the random setting, tick that box right there, and change it to, or you can keep it at velocity per hair and randomize it. And as you can see, they all rotate in a different direction, and you have a nice dust particles flying in the air. So what you can do now, let's see if you can actually see them. I don't think so. Let's see if you can... let's do a quick test render just to see if they're actually there. Or we could give this a material. We make this maybe a nice specular. Let's remove that. We just use a translucent shader. We put that in there, and that should be good. Let's save it, and let's make a quick render. We have 12 minutes left, so we actually have quite a bit of time left. Usually it's pretty tight in terms of time. We can make a quick render, maybe put it to 50% of the end size. Save it one more time, render it real quick, shouldn't take too long. You can see it if I switch to the image editor, go to the render result, and there you go. Let's wait until that's finished. What I want to change next is this object, basically the wall. I'm going to give it a texture, and then let's see what that looks like once that's done. So I don't think you can see any... Oh, I think you can see some particles, but they're not that big. I think this one's a particle, so we can maybe even increase the amount. So let's put that to 12,000 maybe. Let's see how many are flying in the air now. Okay, that's quite a lot. So that should definitely be enough. If not, then, well, so be it. I don't want to fine-tune this too much, because that's going to eat up my time. Let's switch that back to the rendered view, so we can see what we're working with. Let's remove this real quick. Actually, we don't need to. We can just look at this portion of the wall. Go to material preview, and as you can see, there's no material. And you can also see the particles flying in the air. What we'll have to do is go to the wall, select it, make a new material. We can keep this. This is just a nice basic shader that works for almost every material. The timer is for a 30-minute, so every stream, the first thing I'll do is a quick sketch, a daily quick sketch, which will take me 30 minutes. I set the timer so I know when I have to stop. So I have 10 minutes left to create this piece. Once I'm done with this, I give myself like 10 minutes more, and then I have the finished product. This is basically just a beginning for my stream to warm up, and then transition to the main project or main topic of the day, and then also have a thumbnail for YouTube, and also like to do a quick render. I set myself basically that I want to make a quick sketch every day, which is going to take me roughly, if I do it on stream, 30 minutes, as you can see for the timer, or if I do it off stream, I'll give myself a little bit more time. So the easiest texture we can use to make it look more natural, we can use the noise texture. It looked like this, pretty weird right now. What we can do is use a mapping node that basically determines how this noise texture is applied to the object. We can switch that around, experiment a bit to see what the best result is going to look like. I want to avoid as much stretching as I can. We can shade it smooth so it's more visible. Let's maybe switch that to something else. UV looks kind of weird. Maybe object. This looks pretty natural. And so let's change this a little bit. If you plug that in right now, for example, if we have this material and then we use a bump node, we plug that into the normal socket. We can then, with this noise texture, simulate roughness on this surface. Right now it's pretty smooth. So if we plug that in right now into the height socket, you can see it gets pretty rough. If I mute that, you can see what I mean. Without it, pretty smooth, and with it, you can see these rough or these imperfections. We can then affect these, how it looks, by just using, for example, a color ramp. And for example, if it's not supposed to be this crazy, we can change the strength to something lower, maybe 0.1. I think that's a little bit too small, maybe 0.25. So we get a nice roughness on these stones. Also, what we can do to make it quite, to make these spots not I think unanimously rough, you can, for example, change these settings to give them some smooth spots, and some of them are rough with these edged corners and all that, and scratches. So that looks way more natural than it did before. I think that looked pretty good. This object is a 3D scan I pulled from the internet. I think it was Sketchfab. And it has UVs, but they're pretty weirdly set up. So some parts of these wall tiles are separated from the other, and it's just confusing to work with. So to make it quick, I just made a new material, and I'm not using the material that was implemented before. Yeah, I think that's the correct one for the background as well. We could maybe even, oh, I have an idea. Okay, let's just remove this wall real quick. I want to see what it looks like if we remove that, and then maybe even use a point light and put it behind these piers, I think they're called, or frieze, and then increase the strength to something pretty high, maybe 10,000, and then also change it to a more orange. Okay, I think that's too much in terms of strength. Maybe switch that to something less, maybe just 2,000. Ooh. Okay. Maybe change the position. Maybe even to the top. No, I think the bottom looks more interesting. More like that. Okay. We can then also use this texture. For example, use the same texture, put it into the roughness, so the roughness isn't the same everywhere. We can do that by using the same noise texture. Everything that's black is going to be so black is basically completely clean and reflects all light, and white means it diffuses all the light as much as it can. So what I'll do is I want to have these smooth parts pretty glossy, and right now it's doing the opposite if I would put that into the roughness node, roughness socket. So what I'll do is use a invert node, plug that into the roughness, and then if I plug this shader in, you can see, can you see it? Yeah, some parts, as you can see, are pretty shiny. Let's decrease that. You can easily decrease it by using another color ramp. And then you can say the roughness should only range from not 1, maybe, actually 1 can stay. We should change the 0 maybe to a 0.3. So the shiniest spots are 0.3 or even 0.4. And that should be pretty good. Yeah, okay. Okay, next up we have 3 minutes and 33 seconds left. Actually, they look pretty, they look like marble. Let's change it up a little bit more, maybe 0.5, and then maybe increase the light parts. Actually, no, let's increase the light parts. Okay, that looks better. Okay, let's save that real quick, just to be sure. And let's see what it looks like with this wall filling. Okay, I think it looks better. Let's see what it looks like without it. I think without it, it actually looks kind of weird. So I'll keep this wall, or this second wall to connect these pieces. I think that looks better. Can we... Oh, Dexter 404, welcome. Hope you enjoy the stream and hope you had a great day. Let's save real quick, and then how much time do I have left? 2:06. Okay, let's see. We can add a little bit more. Right now it looks pretty boring, so I want to change something, but I'm not quite sure what. I mean, it could also just be a nice calm image, but maybe we can change the... Oh, I have an idea. We can go in here, add a second... we have to be really quick right here. We have to mix shader. Use this, pull that to the side. We can use a shader emission, which is gonna light up this object, so it's now white. To change what it looks like, we can use a texture, maybe a noise texture, another one. We can see what it looks like. We have 1 minute 17 left. We use another mapping node. Oh. And then we can change that to a object mapping. So we have the same structure. What we can do now is use another color ramp. Color ramp is your best friend for changing textures. We can then reduce everything to black and white basically to get these cuts in there. These nice bright spots. And what we can do now is use this as a mask. Everything that's going to be black is going to use this shader, and everything that's white is going to use this shader, this stone shader, and everything else is going to be use the emission shader if we plug that into the factor of this mix shader. And if we switch the socket position, you can see everything that's white is going to be the glowing part. We have to change the texture a little bit. Just a few glowing spots. Like that. Oh, it's over. Let's just add a color. Okay. Actually, that looks worse than before. Okay, let's just cut that out and leave it like that. Okay. So let's see what we can do with this. It looks quite boring in my opinion, but post-production can do quite a lot. So if you've always like just rendered your stuff once you were done and you've never used the post-production tool before, do it. It's gonna add so much to the scene. So let's do that real quick. What I'll do is switch from the shader editor to the compositor. Remove this, I don't need it. And now we have our compositor. What we have to do first is render this again. So let's render this real quick. We then can switch to the image editor to see the render and also see what changes we'll do to the image in the compositor. Once that's done, a few seconds more. There you go. Okay. So first things first, to get this noise out of this image, we can use a denoise filter, put that into the image, then switch or also plug in the denoising normal and denoising albedo to make the denoising node work just more effectively. And now we can work with this image. First thing I'll always add is a glare filter that just adds some glowing into the scene. What that's used for mainly is, for example, if I switch that to the fog glow, it's just gonna sell this glowing effect some more. What that means, I'll show you. If I maybe put that to 0.1, the threshold, you can see it just light up the scene a little bit more. If you, for example, have a glowing light, for example, in the scene, usually it's just the object that's glowing is just the object that's glowing. There's no transition from the glowing object to the background. If you add this glare filter, for example, you get some more light shining like off of the object. What I mean is, for example, if let's hit that real quick, I'll just quickly explain it. I have okay, let's see, let me pull up an image that I can show you what I mean. I think I can even Google it real quick. Blender fog, no, glare note. Is there a nice image? Okay, so this one's pretty good. Let me pull that up in a new tab. And let's switch the view so you can see it. There you go. And right here, this image. So without this glare node, you would only have this stripe of glowing blue. But once you add this glare filter, as you can see right there, it's this one's without the glare filter. Then it goes into the glare filter, and then the end product is what you see right here. You get this almost like glowing effect around the actual glowing or emitting object, which just makes it look more, first of all, more interesting, and also stronger in the sense that it's actually looking like a thing that's emitting light. I think there's no real life image that wouldn't have this glare around the glowing object, just because there's atmosphere in the world, which means these small particles that are in the air is basically what you saw in this image. These ones are just basically getting lit up by the object, by the emitter, which will make this shining glare around the emitting object. This is basically what the glare filter does. It just gives it a little bit more power, and it just makes it look more natural. So what you can do now, you can also do the same effect of this glare filter by using a what is it? Right here, I've added a cube. That is I added a new material to it, which is the principal volume. What that basically does is it simulates the same effect. For example, particles in the air or adding a atmosphere. You can do that by using the principal volume node. And that basically does the same effect. I use it in this scene to get these nice, this cone of light emitting from this light right there, going through this window basically and onto this wall. Without this atmosphere cube, basically, you wouldn't see these brighter spots from where the light is coming. You would only see this bright spot right here. And to make it look more interesting, first of all, more interesting and also more realistic, you can add this to get this nice cone of light coming from where the object is actually coming from. Yep. So those are the two main parts that I use for adding a little bit more realism and atmosphere to the scene. First of all, using this principal volume node, and also in the compositor using the fog glow, the glare and then fog glow node. We can also add this one more time. Let's see if that actually looks good. If we switch that from the glare filter to the streaks, maybe. You can get these shining stars on shiny parts of the object, but I think that's just going to be too much. So let's change some other things. First thing I'll change is use a bright and contrast node maybe increase the contrast to make it a little bit more interesting. Put that maybe to 1. Okay, as you can see, the darker parts just get darker and the brighter parts get brighter. And it just, right without it, it's pretty bland, pretty similar in terms of color. Just adding this gives it way more dynamic. And it just looks more interesting. Also, maybe we can increase the saturation a little bit. If you want to have more agency on this node, you can also use the RGB curves. That's basically, you can change the same, or you can get the same effect with this one. This basically works like the, where is it? The shader editor, the color ramp node. What it basically does is, if we go to the compositor, this point is basically all the black parts in the scene, and this high point is all the white parts in the scene. And so basically the x-axis is from black to white, and then on the y-axis going from 0 to 1 is also basically black to white. So if I pull this point right there, which is going to be on black and black on x and y axis, if I pull that up to the mid part, for example, all the dark parts are going to change to a, let's plug that in right there. All the dark parts, or also all the black parts, are going to change to a 0.5 gray. And if I now, for example, pull this pure white to 0, all the white parts are going to switch to a black. This looks kind of weird right now because this curve changes not only these 2 points, but also all the grade, like the whole, from black to white, the whole spectrum in a certain way. So what we can do, for example, right here to get a similar effect to the contrast node, we can go in here, for example, say bump up the whites and also pull down the black parts, and then you can get this. Of course, that's pretty drastic. If we decrease that a little bit, we can make it a little bit more realistic, or not as crazy. But I think we've already added the contrast, so we don't really need it. Although this actually looks pretty good. Without it, it just adds a little bit more. I think that's not really necessary, so we can remove it. Oh yeah, I wanted to change the saturation. Plug that in there so we see what we're doing. So saturation is pretty sensitive. Maybe we only need like 1.1. Oh, there you go. Just gets a little bit warmer. And I think that looks pretty good. Oh, I forgot one vital part. I should have added depth of field to this camera. So the further you go away from the focus point, which is this point right there, this cross, this is going to be the focus point. This spot is the sharpest spot in the scene, and then from there everything else would fade out into blurriness. That also adds quite a lot of realism to the scene, but I forgot it. Only 30 minutes, and we actually had quite a lot of time, so I just forgot it. We could maybe fake it by using the mist pass, but I think I haven't included the mist pass, so we have to live with it. That's the nature of the 30-minute sketch. If you not do it in the 30 minutes, well, you gotta live with it. So let's save that. I think we're basically done. We could add one more filter or node to the scene, which is going to be the lens distortion, which is also one of my 2 favorite nodes. It just adds a little bit more pep to the image. What it basically does is, if we put that to 1, for example, for the dispersion, it just separates the 3 channels RGB on the edges of the image, and this can add some like an interesting effect. If you put it, for example, to 0.25, it's not as crazy and just can add some more dynamic to the scene. But I think this scene is quite calm, so I'll just leave it out. The distortion does a similar effect, but it just distorts the whole image. Like, it's similar to a fisheye lens. So if we put that to 1, you can see it just like pulls everything in the middle towards you, and everything else stays basically where it is. If we then we can just change it like that, but as you can see, it pulls back, and this looks actually pretty interesting because you have these curved shapes. They're not just straight. So let's put that to maybe -2. Oh, not -2, -0.2. Oh, that's also interesting. This actually looks pretty interesting, so I think I'll keep it like that. And I think that's all I'm gonna change. So that's basically all we have, or that's the 30-minute sketch done. Save it one more time. Let's see what it looks like without the compositing. Let's just mute everything. This is the image, just pure render, and then using all these notes in the compositor, we get this. Looks way better. Let's save it. One thing I did for my off-screen quick sketches was I put them into Photoshop just to add a filter on them. Similar to an Instagram filter, they can add an interesting feel to the whole image, but I'm not going to do that for these ones. Let's save that and render the final image, and then we're done with this. Change the render to maybe 64 should be enough. Full 1920 by 1920, save it and render the final image. Once that's done, we're going to go over to the main project for today. I think we can actually start the two topics I wanted to tackle today. First thing is going to be, of course, as it says in the title, a beginner tutorial for everyone, in which I'm also going to include something special today, which is I'm going to include sculpting as well. I did 2 previous Blender beginner tutorials for everyone. So basically you need no prior knowledge in Blender to follow these tutorials. And the first one was a house on a small island, and the other one was a rocket ship flying around a planet. And today it's gonna be a still life. Let's pull up a reference image that we can build off of. And I'm also gonna not only model it using just the usual modeling tools, but I also will use the sculpting tab. I'm not going to use a graphics tablet. Usually I would do that, but to keep it beginner friendly, I'll use the mouse. We're not going to do something crazy. We're just going to sculpt the apple that I'm going to introduce or include in the scene using the sculpting tab. Let's pull up a nice image so I can show you what we're going to build today, or something similar. Let's see what looks good. I had one, I built it before. Actually, we could do this one. Okay. Yep, let's do this one. Let's pull it up. I'll show you in a second. Okay, the image is done. Let's save it real quick, and then we can move over to the main topic of today. Once we've done the beginner tutorial, I'll start my next bigger project, which is gonna take multiple sessions or multiple streams. I just recently finished my second character I built on stream, I also uploaded the quick or speed art of that on YouTube on my video channel. The first video should be up today, or it's already up. The second one should be up tomorrow. First part is just gonna be the modeling process, and then the second part is gonna be, or the modeling process of the main or the character, and then the second part is the modeling and also shading process of the background and the whole scene. Basically, the second part is just finishing up the scene and creating the final shot. Let's save it real quick. Quick sketch 18. Okay. Save it. Okay. So, to make it fully beginner friendly, we have to change to a different Blender version. This one's a older version, 2.90. The newest one is, I think, 2.91.2. So let's switch to that. Let's remove this timer. All the settings or preset settings in my current version I work in are not in this newer version. So if I open that up, it's gonna be basically all the factory settings. I think you see it now. Yeah, you do. Let me change the size so it's actually fitting the whole screen. Oh, a little bit more. Okay, so let me pull up my image. Image editor. Let's see, can I just pull it in there? Nope. Okay, let's download it and then I'll show you. Oh, of course he's downloading a web file. Okay, let's just switch to the screen cap. There you go. And there you go. This is basically what we're gonna do today. We're gonna sculpt not an orange. We could actually make an orange, but I think an apple is just easier. Or no, I think we'll just make an orange. We will make this bottle, this cup, and we'll leave out this knife and make a different we'll make a table. Just a small table where all this stuff can lie on or stand on. We're also gonna remove this towel from our scene. It should be pretty basic, so all we will add is this orange, this bottle, and this cup. Okay, let me set up my scene so everything is fully like as if you've opened Blender for the first time. Let's get the splash screen. Okay. So I need my image. I've just removed it. Let me save it again. Not as in a web file. Make a screenshot. Okay, so I want to pull this up in Blender so you can actually see it. Okay. Yep. Oh, I gotta save it on my desktop so I can pull it up. Okay. So let me just quickly. Yep. Let me just go in here, image editor, change that to this image. Okay. Nice. Let's put that back. F10. Nope, not F10. Just timeline right there. That's the standard setup. Okay. I'm gonna drink something real quick and then we can go over to the tutorial. Okay. So The last tutorial was quite long. I think it took me like 1.5 hours. Just recording, I'm gonna cut it down to maybe, hopefully, an hour. Like the first one. I'm hoping this one could be faster. But if you have to like explain everything in depth, it can take quite a long time. Let's see. Okay. So, I think we're ready. Excuse me. So, okay. What do you mean with edit screen? Oh. Oh, yeah, thanks. Oh, of course, that's because I have to switch to the Blender capture. Now it should be good. Nice. Thanks. Yep, have to keep that in mind. Okay. Of course, if you have any questions, if you want to follow this, for example, if you have any questions right now, you can ask them. Maybe it will probably be helpful for everyone that's going to start up. If there are any questions to resolve those, if I not like think about it. For example, I don't know how you move stuff. Maybe I'll just talk about it briefly and then forget about it. Yeah, if there are any questions, feel free to ask them. Go to the splash screen. Okay. Ooh. Okay, I think we're ready. Okay. So, welcome to the newest version or the newest episode of Blender tutorials for everyone, where I'll show you or I'll make a project with you where you need no previous Blender knowledge, which basically means you can just download it right now and do this with me. First things first, of course, you need Blender, which means I'll provide a link to the Blender site where you can just download it in the description. It's gonna lead you right to the Blender site. There should be a blue button. Just press on that. You have to press it again, I think, and then you can download it. Download process is pretty straightforward. Just save it somewhere wherever you want, and then you can, once you've done that, start it up, and you will get a splash screen where you can make your first settings. So the first settings can basically stay this. Okay, it can stay on all the default settings, except one thing I've changed is the spacebar function. You should see an option that says spacebar, and in that you can switch from, I think, play. One of these options should be search. I've switched mine from play to search, just because if you then press spacebar, you can type in any function you're looking for and you should find it using that. That's pretty helpful sometimes. So once you've done that, you can save your settings. Of course, if you used Blender before, you can also import your old previous settings into the newest version. That should be the left button, bottom left button on the splash screen. But if you're brand new to Blender, you can just save these settings and then you get the splash screen. The splash screen is pretty unnecessary, so you can just click outside of it to remove it. And this is going to be your first scene you'll see. Looks probably pretty confusing in the beginning, but it's pretty simple if you look into it. So first thing first, this big window you see in the middle is going to be your 3D viewport. This is basically the scene you're working in, the 3D space where all the objects of the scene are going to be located. As you can see right here, the first things you'll have in your scene is going to be a cube, a light source, which is going to be this round thing right there in the air, and also this camera. This is what the camera looks like. Those are the essential things you need in a scene to basically create a scene and then export it. So this is your 3D viewport. Over here, let me just remove my camera so you can see it. Over here, you can see your layers. This is basically just the collection of all the objects that you can see in your scene. So you have your camera, as I said before, the cube in the middle, and the light right there. You can, it's similar to Photoshop layers. The only difference is you can't, for example, grab this camera and pull it below this light, just because it's a 3D space. In 2D space, you could add layers, so you can change the, for example, you can pull something in front of something else, like a different layer. You can't do that in 3D space, of course, because everything has a different position. What you can do though is add folders, for example, to sort your items a little bit more. For example, you can make a light folder, or collection it's called. But that's not really necessary for the first project, so you can keep that out. First, you can also delete it. And then what you'll see to the bottom right is a properties panel. You have all these settings you can change. For example, you can go into the light and say your light settings could change. For example, you can increase the power and all that. It's not necessary right now. We'll delve more into that later. What we'll do first is we can keep everything standard. So you basically have this interface with multiple windows in one. This is going to be your first one, this is going to be your second one. And then down here you have your timeline. We don't need a timeline, so we can switch this window to something else later. But let's focus on the 3D viewport first. So, of course, to actually move in your scene and see everything three-dimensional, you have to rotate your camera, for example, move your camera, or move your camera, rotate your camera, and zoom in, of course. You can do that by, first of all, rotating is going to be done by pressing the middle mouse button and holding it, and then moving your mouse. You can orbit around a certain point in the 3D viewport. Right now it's the middle where these two axes meet, where also this indicator is. You orbit or rotate around this point, and as you can see, just holding it and moving your mouse, you can rotate around this object, this cube. You can also do that by, for example, if you have the magic mouse, it's going to be a little bit different. The magic mouse is for the Mac, for the iMac, which doesn't have a middle mouse or a mouse wheel. I think you press shift and right click or something. You might have to look that up. I've never used that before. But it's not that different. And next up, of course, after rotating, you need to zoom in, which is going to be pretty easy. You can just scroll with your mouse wheel to zoom in. You can also, if you have your magic mouse, you can change a setting which is going to enable you, if you switch to the, or if you go to the top left, you can go to edit and then go to preferences, get a new window. Oh, you get a new window, and in input you can go to mouse, and then there's a small check mark or a small button you can activate, which is going to say emulate 3-button mouse. If you do that and then close the window again, you can then press wait, give me a sec, you have to press Control and Alt and then left click, hold all of that, and then moving your mouse forward or backward. You can also zoom in or out. And of course, you do not only have to rotate your camera around a certain object or zoom in and out, you also have to move your viewport to, for example, a different position. For example, if you move this cube over there and you want to move to it, you can of course first rotate and then move your viewport to the object. This is going to be done by pressing shift and then middle mouse button. Of course, magic mouse is going to be a little bit different. It should be too different though. I think if you, there's also a, oh, this is zooming in. Oh, there you go. If you press shift and alt after activating this 3-button mouse setting, you can press shift and alt and then left click, and you can also move around in your scene. So those are the 3 main movement options you have in your 3D viewport. So now if you, for example, reset the scene right there, and then, I don't know, you have a cube right there, and you also have a cube over here. You can't see it anymore. You're working on this cube, and then, oh, I gotta switch to my other cube. You can then you can move to there. Or if you want to see both cubes, you can rotate it and see both cubes in the same viewport. And of course, and then also if you, for example, want to move over there, you can not only move it like that, you can also zoom in and you're closer to the cube. Those are going to be your main movement options. So let's show you actually what we're going to do today. We're going to go right into the first project. This tutorial is going to basically be a step-by-step tutorial creating a project on your first day with Blender, probably. Or, I mean, everybody can do this tutorial, but if it's going to be your first time using Blender, this is going to be a project you're going to finish in probably an hour or so. So let me show you what we'll actually do today. If I switch that to the image editor, you can see this is going to be the scene. We're not going to recreate, but we're going to take some of these objects and put them into our scene. The first object we'll add is this bottle. We're also going to sculpt this orange. And we're going to not use this board, but we're going to make a table where everything can stand on. And maybe we'll also add this cup right there. So first thing first, the easiest part, let me switch that back to the timeline so I have the same setup you have. First thing we'll add is the bottle. This is going to be the easiest one. We can first of all remove this cube, because if we look back at the bottle, for every object you will model in your scene, you should always think about how these objects are going to be set up in terms of primitive shapes. So if you look at this bottle and we look at the object, we look at the objects we could add to the scene in terms of primitives, we can see what this bottle is made of. So what I mean with primitives is you have this cube. This is one primitive. If we remove this cube by pressing X and then delete, you can then go over to the add button right there, and you have all these options. What we're going to be interested in is the mesh option, and you get all these primitives you can add to the scene. First thing is going to be a plane, and then cube, circle, whatever you need for your object that you want to model. If you now look at the bottle right there, and we see all the options for the primitive meshes, I think the easiest one, or the best one we can use for the bottle, is going to be the cylinder. So to add this mesh cylinder mesh to the scene, you just click on it, and there you go, you have your cylinder mesh. So first things first, of course, to change this cylinder mesh to make it look like this bottle, we would have to stretch it out to make it actually longer. So the easiest option to do that is use the scale tool. We can click that, and as you can see, you get this new gizmo, or these new handles. These ones work like that. You can see you have these axes. You have this green axis, this red axis, and also this blue handle where there should be a blue axis. The x-axis is basically the red one, the green axis is the y-axis, and the blue axis is the z-axis. It's basically like a graph in math, if you've had vector, for example. Vector math. So what you can do is, for example, if you want to scale this object on the x-axis, you grab onto this handle, hold it, and then pull it, for example, inwards or outwards, and you can scale it on the x-axis. Either make it bigger on this axis or smaller. So what we want to do is we want to make it longer, because this is pretty short right now. It's not quite fitting for this bottle. So what we'll do is we're going to grab this blue handle and scale it on the z-axis. So let's pull it outwards, and as you can see, we get this nice long shape we just pull it and make it longer, maybe like that. That should be enough. Okay, there you go. So you have your first shape. So we're gonna simplify this bottle a little bit. This one looks quite, or is pretty complex with all these round surfaces. What we'll do is we're gonna simplify it by changing the surface to something more rough, I would say, or just simplifying the main shape. What I mean by that is, of course, to get this top part of the bottle, we have to switch, or we have to change this cylinder a little bit. And to do that, we have to change from the object mode to the edit mode. Object mode is basically just for setting up all the objects, moving them around in the scene, scaling them and all that. But if you want to actually change the appearance of this cylinder, for example, or all the objects in your scene, you have to switch to the edit mode. In this edit mode, you can see the appearance has changed a little bit, because you can now change these individual points of the object. Every object in the 3D space is going to be set up of different parts, which is basically, you can see right now, you have these points. All these points are located on the corners of an object. You can see right there, there's a corner, and all the way around. And between these points, which are also going to be called vertices, these vertices or points are going to be connected by edges. You can see, if we select both of them, you can see this edge is highlighted in orange. Also, all these points connect by using edges, and using, for example, these 4 points, you can see not only the edges are selected, but also the surface between those edges, which is going to be the surface, which is called a face. So we have 3 ways of changing the model, or this cylinder. We can either change a point in itself, just moving it around, for example. We could also use or change this edge, move it around, for example. Now we move this edge. Or we could also select all these 4 points and select the face and move that around. So what we'll do, we have to make this top part narrower, which means we use a new tool, which is going to be let me scroll down or make this shorter. We use the loop cut tool. The loop cut tool basically adds a cut in the middle of the face or the surface. What I mean is, you can see this highlight, and it basically determines where the middle of this face is. So this highlighted face, this is right in the middle. If you now see this highlight and you press left click, you can see it adds a cut into the middle of the face, and it adds more points or vertices and also more edges. So as you can see right there, there are more points. They go all the way around, and you can also see more edges where all these points connect. So what this did is it basically enabled us, if we remove this cut real quick, I'll show you what this is useful for. Let me just remove that real quick. Now, what we're gonna do next is we're gonna grab this top part, this face at the top. We use a different selection for that. We can switch between these 3 elements, how we want to select them. So right now we can only select vertices. We can switch from vertices select up here to the top left to the edge select, and as you can see, the vertices disappear and the edges are highlighted. Now if you left click, for example, you can see I can select the edges. And what you can also do is switch from edge select to face select. And as you can see right now, if I select this face, you can see I select the whole surface. We can then select this top face and use the scale tool again to scale it on the X and also on the Y axis, just to make it smaller. We can do that by using this wide circle. You don't have to do it right now. This is just to show you what actually happens if we do that. So as you can see, we now have created this pyramid shape, which is not what we want, because if we look back at this bottle, you can see you have this narrow top part and then it goes wide and stays wide. Right now, for us, if we keep it like that, it's pretty narrow at the top, but it starts to go wide right from the beginning. Then at some point it reaches the max point at the bottom. We don't need that. We don't want that. So what we'll do, of course, as we did before, maybe you've kept it in your file. We use the loop cut tool to make a cut in the middle, which will enable us to, if we then select the face at the top, we have to switch back from the loop cut tool to the select box tool. We can then select the face at the top and switch to the scale tool. Now if we scale it back, you can see only half the object will be scaled down. So we can use that to affect how our transformations change this object. So one thing we have to add to give it a little bit more of this round shape, this S shape, where the narrow part transitions to this wide part. We add 2 more cuts. So we switch back to the loop cut tool. We change the number of cuts up here in this bar from 1 to 2. And then you only see 1, but if you then click up here with left click, you can see we've added 2 cuts. Now, if you want to change this shape to a more S shape, you can then go in here, select the select box tool, and then right now both of these edge loops are selected, but we only need 1, so we can click outside of this object and then select this edge row or edge loop. We can either do that by left clicking and shift left clicking to select multiple ones, or we can do the same by holding on this edge loop and then left clicking, like double left clicking, and then we select the whole edge loop. You can do the same for every edge loop that there is in this object. For example, right there, right there. You can also do it vertically, and you select all the edges that are connected. So if you do that for this one right there, and then we select the scale tool again, and you scale it down, maybe similar to the top part right there at the top, you can see we get this nice narrow part, which stays narrow and then at some point gets wider. We can maybe change it a little bit more. For example, we can make this wider. So we can select all these edge loops or this edge loop and scale it up. Similar to this edge loop right there in width. And you see we have a really pretty basic, but also you can see it's a bottle. So we'll leave it like that. So as you can see, we've created our bottle. Of course, pretty basic, but that's just that's the beginning of your Blender career. So we'll keep it basic for now. We can add some more to the scene later. If you finish this project and you wanna do some more, I'll make a second video, which is gonna be in the description below, which is gonna show you how I add more to this scene. And if you want to do that, you can follow this video. It's probably gonna be a like sped up video just showing you what I add. And if you want to see what I add, maybe get some inspiration and replicate what I add to the scene and get some more training in, you can do that, and maybe learn some more about the whole, like just getting some training in is always pretty good. So once we have our bottle, we can switch back from edit mode to object mode. You can also press tab to switch between object mode and edit mode. And we have our first object done, which is going to be the bottle. Of course, we can see this cap part where the cork, I think it's called, is going to be put in, the hole basically. We're going to add that later. We're going to add the basic parts first, and then we can detail them some more. So what's going to be next is going to be the cup. We're going to train our modeling skills some more. So what we'll do, of course, is make the cup first, and then we'll switch over to the sculpting tab and sculpt this orange. So first things first, we'll make this cup. We can do that by, of course, adding another object to the scene. And which primitive could be best suited for a cup? If you go to add mesh, I think the best to add would be a cylinder. Of course, another cylinder. Let's just add that to the scene. And there you go, we have another cylinder. We can then grab the move tool. And as you can see, we get new handles. This time there are arrows. We can then grab this object and pull it out of the other one. And there you go, we have two objects in the scene. As you can see, also, you have this listing right there. And you can see we have not only one cylinder, we have two cylinders. You can name them if you want. For example, double left clicking. You can call them, for example, bottle and cup. Right there. Now you can distinguish them both. So, to change this primitive object to a cup, first thing, of course, we have to do is select this and switch to edit mode. Now, what we'll do first is at the hole, basically, bottom, at the top. So what we'll do is use a new tool. This new tool is going to be the Inset Faces tool. And we do not select edges right at the top left right there. We have edge select selected. We switch that to the face select. We can then select this top face. And as you can see, you get this new handle. So it's not going to be 3 handles, it's only 1 handle. And it works like that. If you then left click on this handle and then pull it inwards, you can see you inset this face. If you look from the top a little bit more, you can see it better. If you push this down into the face, you can see this face gets smaller. We add some more geometry and you can see we have this nice round shape and this border around it. So to get the hole in the middle, basically, to make it a cup, you use the new tool, which is going to be the extrude region tool. Select that. And as you can see, you get another new handle. You get the extrude region handle. This one's pretty simple as well. You can left click this one and pull it inwards as well to push this face into the cylinder. You can push it pretty far, not too far though. Make sure that if you push it down, that it's not intersecting with the bottom, so that it pushes through the object. As you can see right there, it pushed through the bottom. We don't want that, so make sure to keep that in mind. If you want to reset your last step, you can just press Ctrl Z and it resets your last step. You can now do that again, push it down, make sure you're not intersecting with the bottom. Okay, that looks pretty good. So now we have our cup shape. Last thing we'll need to add is the handle. We can also add this narrowing at the bottom. We can do that by using the loop cut tool again. We did that before, but we have to do something else. Or we have to add something to this loop cut tool. First of all, we'll make this cut Before we do that though, we have to keep in mind the cuts are set to 2 right now. We switch that back to 1 and then make the cut in the middle. As you can see, it's in the middle. And then to move this edge loop down on the edge to something like down there, we have to use the, where is it? The edge slide tool. We switch to that, and with this one you can push the edges down or to somewhere wherever you want. You can push them on the edges to a different position. We want to push it maybe to right there, and then to make this bottom part narrow, we select, of course we switch to the face select. We select this face at the bottom. We switch then to the scale tool, and we can scale it down just a little bit, and there you go. So one last thing that's missing is the handle. We can add that by adding a few more cuts into this top part. So we'll just grab the loop cut tool again, and to make it easier on ourselves, we can change the number of cuts to 4 and then go into the middle and make a cut, and there you go. You can have now, you have 4 more cuts, and then if you switch to the face select again, select, oh, we have to switch to the select box tool, this one right there. And now if you select this face, this face, this face, and this face, you can now extrude them outwards. The same we did right here, we extruded it inwards. We're going to do the same here, but we're going to extrude it outwards. So we grab the extrude region tool, grab this handle, and pull it outwards. There you go. Now, to connect these two parts, these extruded parts, to get this nice handle where you can actually grab onto it, we have to add 2 cuts, one in here and one right there. So we select the loop cut tool again, cut into this one right there. Oh, of course, we forgot something. We have to switch the number of cuts. Always remember that. Switch that to 1, cut in here, and cut in there as well. So we get these 2 cuts. Now we have to push them further outwards. So we switch to the edge slide tool again and grab this handle and pull them more outwards. Of course, to make it more, to actually make it fit how you're supposed to do it, we select both loop cuts or edge loops. We select both by selecting the first one by double clicking this edge loop, and then holding shift and doing the same on this one. Holding shift and then double left clicking this edge loop will select both of them. Now we can use this handle and push them both outwards. Okay, so now we have to connect these two. What we have to do is switch back to the face select, switch to the select box, and select this face, and also these 2 faces. We then have to remove only the faces, which we can do by pressing X. You can also go to select, or which one is it? Mesh. You have to switch to mesh. Then you can go here to delete and select faces. There you go. You remove the faces. You can do the same by pressing X and then select faces. Now you have this hole, and to fill out this hole, what you can do is switch back to the edge select, and to connect 2 faces right here, or 2 edges. For example, if you may want to make a new face between these 2 edges, you can either press F to connect those, or to connect all of those at the same time. So this right here, this hole, put that or connect that to this hole. You can select all these edges, so all of these, and also the one at the bottom. And then you can press, if you switched it from spacebar to search, you switched the spacebar function to search, you can press spacebar and then search for bridge, and you can see bridge edge loops. You click that, and that's not what I wanted. Okay. Oh, mine failed because I selected the wrong edges. So if you select everything correctly, you can go to bridge edge loops, and there you go. You've connected all these edges perfectly. Of course, if you want, you can pull this handle in a little bit so it looks not as long. So what you have to do is switch to the face select all the faces you want to push in. For me, it's going to be those ones, all of those, and then switch to the move tool again. You get these arrows and you can push them inwards. There you go. Easy peasy. Okay. So this is basically the cup done. Last thing we'll add, or one of the last things, we'll add an orange and also a table. First thing we'll add is the orange. This cup is done, so we can switch back to object mode by either pressing tab or object mode right here. Okay, and we're back into object mode. So to add the orange primitive, to start with this orange, we will add something else than a cylinder, which is gonna be, if you switch to go to add mesh, we will add a UV sphere. The orange is round, the UV sphere is also round. Hello creator, thanks, welcome. We go in here and you can see we've added the sphere. Of course, it's inside of this bottle. What we can do, we can select this bottle and just move it over. And as you can see, we've divided all these three objects. So what I do on this channel on stream, I have on Monday, at least for the next few streams, I want to make a Blender beginner tutorial that everybody can follow. So I have like 10 or so that I can put on my YouTube channel. And then probably just the next few Mondays, I'll do like just some explanation of a fun thing I've discovered or something. What I usually do is just so all the other streams, so tomorrow and the next few days I'm gonna do sculpting a new project that I'm working on. So I create a new character. I've created 2 characters on stream already. I've been doing Blender for almost 2 years now, and what I want to do on this stream is basically just share my knowledge, my passion, and just maybe inspire new people to learn it, or share what they've learned or what they're working on. So right now I'm doing a beginner tutorial, one of the few that I have right now. I've done 2 already. One of them is already on my YouTube. The other one I still have to edit, and I'm probably gonna do 5 or a few more, maybe 10. And then I'll probably switch to just a quick tutorials, for example, creating atmosphere for your scene to make it look more realistic, for example. Yeah, so that's the plan right now. So tomorrow I'm not going to do a tutorial, I'm actually going to do a speed run in Blender. What that means is I'm trying to create an object in Blender as fast as I can. I did that before yesterday, I mean not yesterday, last week on Wednesday I think, or Tuesday. I speedran Minecraft in Blender, which what I basically did was I built the Minecraft grass block in Blender as fast as I can. I made a video out of that, should be up on YouTube on Wednesday. So to spoil it. It took me, my PB I think is 57 seconds. So creating or like using the pre-made cube and then adding a texture, setting the UVs right, and then rendering it basically. Yep, so that's basically what I have planned right now. Tomorrow I'm gonna do the speedrun and also work on my new project. Also, tomorrow the speedrun will probably be... I think I'm gonna do an apple. Just like basic things, but just making it like interesting and to see how fast you can create stuff in Blender. Probably gonna take like an hour or so. I'm just gonna give it like 10 tries and then switch over to the main project. And yeah, the main project is gonna be another character. But yeah, if you want to see that, you can tune in tomorrow. Or the next few days. I'm basically streaming from Monday to Thursday. Okay, let's continue with this beginner tutorial. Okay, so to change this sphere to something more orange-like, as I said before, we're going to use the sculpting tools in Blender. Sculpting is basically how you would do in real life, using clay, for example, for sculpting. You can change these objects by using sculpting tools. So to do that, the easiest thing would be to switch the tab up here. You have different tabs. You have layout, what we use right now. You can switch that to modeling, sculpting, what we're going to use, and you have all these other options. Those are basically just different setups in terms of layout that are going to make it easier for you to work on a specific topic. So what we'll need is the sculpting tab. We click on that. And as you can see, we're in sculpting mode now. Now you can see the interface looks a little bit different. You can see right there, you have a brush setting. Thank you. Oh wait, why is my setup is weird? Creator things, hello. What are you doing on your channel? Also Blender? Thanks for the follow. So as you can see right there, the interface changed a bit. You can see the brush settings on your right in these settings. You can also see the different tools you have for sculpting to your left, where the other extrude region tools and all that were. And in the middle you have your 3D viewport. Yeah, I basically only use Blender on stream. Yeah, of course, that's why I'm in the art section, because I want to create stuff in Blender. So what we'll do first is we're going to change this shape to make it look more like the orange. It's a little bit flatter, and we have this this top part, which is going to be the connection to the plant. I don't know what you call it, but of course, to make it a little bit flatter first, we have to switch the tool. How the sculpt tool works. Oh, let me bring back my image so you can see what I mean. Horizontal split. Oh yeah, you can add new windows by, if you go in here, you have these 3 windows right now. If you want to add a third window, for example, for your reference, you can go between these 2 windows, press right click, and then go to horizontal split or vertical split. It's yours to decide. And you can split one of these windows in half. And if you do that, you add a new window down here. So you can switch that, for example, to the image editor if you have your own reference. How you do that is you go up here to the top left and you can click on that and you have all these options, all these windows. You switch to the image editor. And as you can see, you can add your reference image back in here. You can also, if you've already added it, you can go in here to this button right there and switch to the image right there. And there's your reference image. So To change the shape of this sphere to something more like this, first thing we'll do, as I said before, these tools work like clay sculpting in real life. So you have this cursor and you have this circle around it. The circle basically shows you how much of the surface is going to be affected by your tool. So if you use the first draw tool, you can draw into this sphere and see you lift up the surface you sculpt on. So by reverting that, you can give it some more resolution, because if you just sculpt on there, you can see it just pushes up the current geometry we have. As I said before, you have vertices, edges, and faces, and all you push up right now are the current vertices we have in this object, which is all going to be all these corners. So to add more geometry, the easiest thing to do would be to go in here to the brush settings and go to dynamic topology. Take that, say OK, and as you can see, you have these options. If you click on this arrow, you can open these options up. So what dynamic topology does is, if we switch, you don't have to do this, I'll just show you what it does. You go to wireframe. If we untick that, you can see it just lifts up all these vertices and edges we already have. But if you tick this dynamic topology setting, you can see it adds more geometry and gives you a higher resolution. So if you switch back to solid view, you can see you can just more easily change this surface without being limited to the current resolution of this object, which just makes it easier and more natural to work with this object. So of course, what we'll have to do is make it flatter. The easiest tool to do that with is gonna be we have to scroll down and use the grab tool. As you can see, you have this cursor changed, the icon right here changed as well. This tool is basically for grabbing a part of the mesh and just pulling it outwards. You can also push it inwards, of course. So what we want to do is make this flatter. So we can make this brush bigger by going to the radius, making it bigger. This should be good, maybe even a little bit more. And your radius is bigger, and now you can grab the whole bottom part and push it up. Make it a few times so you can adjust the shape however you want it. Of course, you can make it longer as well if you want. It's all up to you how you want to shape your orange. This is going to be the bottom part. Also, maybe to make it faster for you, if you want to change the radius a few times, you can press F and you can dynamically change the size by just moving your mouse, and you can see the circle gets smaller or bigger. So if you now press left click, your circle or your cursor is smaller. So let's do the top part as well. Just push it down. And as you can see, we have this nice orange shape like we have in the reference. So this is basically already what we want to have, but we can add a few more things to show you some more tools. First tool I'll show you, of course I showed you the draw tool before, which just draws in like that. It just adds more, or pushes out the surface, like if you would draw on it. You could also use the draw sharp, which is just gonna either push it inwards, create this crease, or you can hold control to do the exact opposite. If you do it without control, you push it in. If you do it with control, you push it outwards. So what we want to do is select not the draw sharp, but the crease tool. This is basically the draw sharp tool, but a little bit better. You can see what it does right there. If you now push in, you can see these nice creases you can create. What I want to do is create this X shape right there at the top. To do that, make sure you have dynamic topology enabled. Make maybe your cursor a little bit smaller and make sure that you see what you're doing. Rotate your camera so you see this nice crease that you create if you left click. Just left clicking, maybe making your cursor a little bit bigger. And then you can create this crease on this orange on the surface right there. Like that. Of course, to get this X shape, we have to do another one. Like that. And there's the X shape. You can also make this top part a little bit deeper, just holding left click and then pushing it inwards a little bit. Create this small hole right there. Looks like a bun right now, like bread or something. And also pretty choppy and sharp with sharp edges. To smooth that out, we have another tool, which is going to be your smooth tool. It's right below the crease tool. Just left click it and you can make it bigger, for example, and then just left clicking it once will just smooth it out a little bit like that. That should be enough. Okay, so you can also smooth stuff by keeping your crease brush, maybe making another crease, and then pressing shift and left clicking, you can smooth surfaces as well, like that. So now you can just work on this, create this nice orange shape right there. And of course, as I said before, if you want to not make a crease, but pull it outwards, you can hold Control and create this nice sharp edge if you want that. I don't need it, or we don't need it for this orange, so we can just keep it like how it is right now. Okay, see you creator, thanks, hope you have a nice rest of your day. So, one more thing we want to add is this small thingy at the top right there. So what we have to do is scroll down and we will see the, not the simplify, we will see the mask tool. We switch to that, and the mask tool basically works like a brush. If you just paint on it, you can see this black paint. You can basically just paint on the surface. You can increase the strength to make it easier to see. Right there, you can see this black. What we use the mask brush for is everything that's black is not going to be affected by your tools. So if I, for example, now switch back to the crease tool and I make a crease right there over the black part, the black part is not going to be affected. So you can basically separate these surfaces, and if you want to work on a more complex shape, you can create this mask to leave these surfaces how they are right now and safely work on the other parts. So what we use this mask tool for is we can remove the mask by pressing Alt M, and then we can make this brush a little bit smaller, and we want to create this small thingy at the top. So we select these small vertices at the middle where the X is, like that. And we also switch the mask because we want to extend this middle part a little bit. So we have this thingy right there. So what we have to do is press Ctrl I or go to mask, invert mask, and there you go. Everything that's going to be black is not going to be affected by our tools. So we can extend this middle part just like to the top without changing everything else. We can then switch back to, for example, the draw tool, make the cursor bigger, and then just repeatedly draw in here. And as you can see, just a few times, you can see we've added this small button or whatever you want to call it right there. So that's basically the shape of the orange. Nice. So you've already learned not only how you can model things by using the modeling tools in object mode, but you've also used the sculpting tab to sculpt a orange. Nice. Okay. So we've created the orange, and that's going to be everything we have to do in sculpting. or in sculpt mode. So we can switch back to the layout tab. Just click on layout and we have our 3 objects. One more thing we have to add is a table, so we can place these objects on. Also, if you want to make it easier on yourself to distinguish between these 3 objects, right now they're just gray, you can give them a random color by going up here to the top right. Click on this small, what do you call this button, this arrow right there next to the circles, and switch under this sphere. You have the color settings. You can switch from material, different settings. The setting we want to use is this random setting. Just left click on that and all the objects get a random color. So last thing we have to add is a table. We can add a table by, of course, we want to make a round table. So the easiest primitive for that would be, of course, if we go to add mesh, we can use another cylinder. Add that and there you go, you have your cylinder. Now, of course, this is not going to look like a table unless we change it. So we select the scale tool again. And you can either change the scale, we want to make it wider but not higher. So what we have to do is scale it on the y-axis, the green one, and the red one as well, the x-axis. We can either do that individually by just pulling out these, oh, pressed the wrong one, by either pulling on this handle, the red one, and pulling it outwards and doing the same on the x-axis. Or, what will be easier, we can also select these pads. You do not only have these handles, but you also have these pads right there. What these pads tell you basically, the color of the pad tells you the axis that's not going to be scaled on. So if you look at this pad right there, the blue one, if we select this one, we're gonna scale on the X on the green one and on the red axis, but not on the blue one. So the pad tells us if it's blue, we're not gonna scale on the blue axis. If we look at the red one, we're not gonna scale on the red axis. If you look at the green one, we're not gonna scale on the green axis. So to scale it on the green and red axis, the Y and X, we select the blue pad and just hold it and pull it outwards, and we scale on these 2 axes. Maybe make it not too big. We don't need it to be super big. Just so all of the objects can fit on this table. Maybe like that. And then to make it a little bit thinner, we can use the blue axis, the Z axis, to scale it down. There you go. Okay, now we can place our objects on this table. What we can do is just use the move tool, also the rotate tool, and maybe even the scale tool to place our objects in the scene to make a nice composition. We can maybe place it similar to this scene. So what we'll do first is select this table, pull it down, and now we can, for example, place the orange first. You can see if it's intersecting by just looking at it right now. Right now it's intersecting. You can see the outline going into the surface or the volume. Just pull it maybe to the top a little bit. And then you see the same paths you had in the scaling, in the scale tool. You have the same ones in the move tool, and they do the same. They tell you which axis is not going to be moved on. So if we select the blue pad, we move it on the X and Y axis, which is going to be the green and red one. So we can move it maybe to the front like that. We can then move the cup closer to the orange like that. We can also rotate it using the rotate tool, a new tool we haven't used before. This tool, you can see you have a different type of handle, which is going to be these circles. They just indicate on which axis you rotate this object on. If you click on this red circle, you can see you rotate it on the x-axis, and so on and so forth. Just left clicking and holding it, you can rotate it on a certain axis. If you want to have more control, you can left click it. If you press then, if you hold control, you have these steps that are going to be useful. For example, if you want to rotate it on a certain degree. Or what you can also do, if you don't want to do it like that and you want to be really precise, you can hold the rotate axis you want to rotate on and then type in 90, for example, and you rotate it by 90 degrees. Now if you move your mouse, nothing happens because you typed in 90. If you then release the mouse, it rotated the object on 90 degrees on the y-axis. So what we want to do is rotate this object so it looks more similar to the reference. Also, maybe you can see it's floating in the air. It's not standing on the table, so we move it down like that. And then we can move it over closer to the orange. Okay, if you look from this angle, for example, you can see it looks quite similar. Of course, the shape is not completely the same, but that's just because we want to keep it simple. We can maybe rotate it a little bit more on the x-axis like that. Okay. Last thing we have to place in the scene is the bottle. We select the bottle, select the move tool again, make sure the bottle is standing on the table. And as you can see, as I said before, the bottle is pretty big, so we can use the scale tool and scale it inwards or make it smaller. If you want to scale on all the axes at the same time, the same works for the move tool and also the rotate tool. You have this wide circle around it. If you hold that, you scale on all the axes at the same time. If you do that for the move tool, you can see this wide circle. You hold it and you can move it somewhere. This is going to move this object on the plane you're looking at it from. What I mean by that is, it's not going to move it on the axis. It's not going to move it solely on, for example, the x-axis or the y-axis. It's going to move it from where you're looking at it. So if I look at it from right here, I can move it like that. But if I now rotate to this side and I pull it to the right side, you can see I have not moved it to right there. I have moved it to right there. So depending on where you're looking at the object from, you move it to a different location. So for example, moving it from here, we'll move it over there. And then you can also rotate your camera and move it to where you want it to place in the scene. Of course, to be more precise, you can use these arrow keys or these arrow handles to be more precise, as I said before. Okay, still looks pretty big. We can maybe scale it down a little bit more, like that, and then make sure it's on the table. Okay. Like that. Nice. Okay. So right now they all look pretty they all have these sharp edges. We can make them smooth or let them appear smooth by selecting one of those and right clicking. You can change the shading option. Right now it's shaded flat. If you select shade smooth, you can see it gets smooth. It's not smooth in terms of geometry, it just appears smooth. The program basically smoothes out all the edges, so it appears like as it's smooth. You can do the same with all these objects. And yep, they just look a little bit more smooth. Next up, we can do the same with the table, but okay, it actually looks pretty good. Okay, so next up, of course, to get the same or a similar shot to the reference, we have to move our camera because we have to shoot the image with the camera. So we have to move our camera to a good spot. we can do that by making a new image and switching to the camera view. You can switch to the camera view in your 3D viewport by going to View and then Cameras, Active Camera, and there you go, you have your camera view. You can leave it again by just going to View, Cameras, and then Active Camera, and you leave it. What you can also do to make it easy on yourself, you can press numpad 0 to go into camera view and also numpad 0 to leave it again. What that does is it makes it easier for you to navigate between these two views. And to make it even easier on ourselves, you can go in here into this view or this window and split it again by right-clicking vertical split. And there you go. Make a split right there, for example, and we have two windows instead of one down there. We can then switch this image editor, this window at the bottom. Yours might be the timeline still if you don't use your own reference. You can switch that from the timeline to the 3D viewport. So we have a second 3D viewport. You can of course rotate, do the same in here that you can do up here. And if you now press 0 on your numpad or go to View, Cameras, Active Camera, you can see the camera view down here. But you can also work in the 3D viewport up here without being forced to look from the perspective of the camera. So now we want to frame our image. What we can do is just move this camera, and as you can see, the view changes. And this frame, basically this orange frame, tells you what the camera sees. Everything that's darker on the outside is not going to be visible in the render at the end. So what we want to do is frame all the objects in the scene to fit them all in the camera view. We can of course use the move tool to move the camera. We can also use the rotate tool to rotate your camera, like that, for example. And you can also, you don't have to use the scale tool. The scale tool really doesn't do much for the camera. All you have to use for the camera is the rotate and move tool. So let's just make sure everything is visible for the camera. Maybe move it up a little bit. Maybe even pull it back some more. Just so everything is so everything is in the scene. Like that. If you left click on this triangle right there and then push it outwards, or no, you have to hover over this frame. If you see if it's highlighted while hovering over it, this cube basically, or this plane, left clicking it, you can change the zoom. You can zoom it out if you want, and there you go. You have your image perfectly set up. So that's going to be your composition. Of course you can make yours differently than mine, but that's going to be mine. And now, of course, if you would render this right now, everything would just be gray and boring. So we have to give these objects some color. We can do that by giving them materials, which will basically tell these objects how they react to light and also what they will look like in the final render. So, to see what your objects look like right now, if you would render them, you can switch this window to the rendered view by extending it a bit, so you can see these 4 circles right there, or 4 balls, and one of those is going to be the render preview, the one on the right. You press left click on that, you can see this is the render. If you would export this, this is what it would look like. One thing I will advise you to do is go over here to the settings, the camera settings or render settings, and change the render engine from Eevee to cycles. As you can see, it looks way better in Cycles. That's because Cycles is a physics-based render engine. It calculates all the light that's going to shine in the scene using physics. The Eevee engine, render engine, is like a game engine that it works faster, but it's not physically accurate. We want to make a physically accurate render, so we use the Cycles render engine. All the other settings are not important for this project. So, to give these objects a different color, for example, let's start with the table. You can see I've selected the table. And then to give them a material, we have to go from the render settings on the right. We switch all the way down to this red circle right there, or red ball, to the material settings. Now you have this new interface, and you have this button right there, this new button. If you click on that, you create a new material. It's still gray. That's because you have all these new options right there. The main options for this project is going to be the base color and also the roughness. All the other things you can just leave like how they are right now. So let's select this table that has this material applied to it. Let's change the base color. Just hovering over this colored block or bar right there, left clicking. You can then change the color using this dot right there. Maybe to a nice brown, pretty saturated, like that. And you can also fine tune it using these bars. H is going to be the hue, the color basically. The S is going to be your saturation. 0 is no saturation, gray or white. And then going all the way to 1 is full saturation. I'm going to use like 0.5 maybe. And then the value is going to be light and dark. How light or how dark is going to be your color. So we can switch that maybe to a nice 0.5 should be good. Maybe, yeah, 0.5. There you go. You can also work with RGB values. You can switch between HSV, hue, saturation value to RGB to work with these ones. Or you can also type in a hex code if you want to do that. I usually use HSV because that's the easiest one for me to use. Once you set up your color, the last thing we can change is the roughness. Roughness is basically how glossy your object is going to be, the surface. If you put it to 0, all the light is going to be reflected, as you can see right there. You can see the reflection of all the objects on the table, basically as if it was a mirror. If you put it to full 1, you can see none of that because it diffuses all the light that's reflecting off this object. So if you put the roughness, for example, to 0.8, we want to have a pretty rough table, which looks like that. Okay, now let's change the cup. We can add a new material by, of course, highlighting it first, left clicking it, and then going to new. And there you go, you've created a new material. We can keep it at white because the cup right there is also white. Maybe we can increase the whiteness a little bit more, so it's pure white. And then you can go to roughness and put it, because it's pretty shiny, you can put the roughness maybe even down to 0 or 0.1, it's up to you. And there you go, we have a shiny cup. Last thing, or the last two things we have to change is the bottle. We want to make it blue like how you see in here. What you can do is, of course, add a new shader. What you can also do is just grab an old shader that we've created for one of the other objects, for example the cup. If you want to use the same shader for this bottle, you can go next to the new button. You have this black button. If you click that, you see a list of all the materials you've created. The one for the cup is going to be material 002. You can, of course, name them. You can see the name right there. Naming them is pretty easy, just left clicking on this name and calling it, for example, cup. There you go. Of course, the bottle is blue, not white. So if we would change the color of this cup material right now, you can see not only the bottle changes color, but also the cup, because both of them have the same material. To unlink these two materials, to basically create a new material for this cup, we can just, for this bottle, we can go up here, next to the name, you have this 2. This number basically shows you how many objects have the same material. If you click on that, you can see we have cup 002, a copy of the cup material. We can then call it, for example, bottle. And there you go, you've created a bottle material. We can then change the color to a nice blue, and as you can see, only the bottle changes in color. So we grab a similar color from the reference, like that, for example. Maybe make it darker, like that. That should be good. Of course, this bottle is made out of glass. If you want to do that, it's going to be a little bit more complicated, but it's not too bad. You can go here into the surface setting, which, oh no, actually you don't have to do that. You can just go into the settings down here and change the transmission from 0. Hold that up, maybe to 1, and now it's going to be a glass material. Can't see it really. If you rotate around, it's pretty dark. If you increase the color, you can see right through the object. But it's probably going to look better if you leave the transmission at 0. So let's switch back to camera view. The last thing we have to color is going to be here orange. So add a new material, change the base color to a more orange color, pretty saturated, like that. There you go. And maybe the roughness a little bit lower, maybe 0.4, or actually 0.3. There you go. You have this shininess you can see in there as well. Of course, it's not going to be as detailed as in here. We would have to change a few more things to do that. Okay, so the objects are set up. The last thing we have to add or change is this light. Right now, this light is going to be located right up there. So the light is going to shine on these objects from up there. If you want to change that, you can move this light to somewhere else. And you can decide where your shadows should fall to, and also just where the reflections should be on the objects. For example, if you put it right there, and then we can also change the radius to make these shadows a little bit softer. We increase the radius, you can see the shadows get softer. Maybe leave it at 0.8. We can also click on the value and then type in 0.8. And there you go. You have a nice soft lighting on the scene. We can then change the color if you want, maybe to a nice yellow to make this more warm, the scene. Like that. There you go. Just a very light yellow. And there you go, you have your scene fully set up. If you then want to make your background a different color, right now it's gray, you can do that as well. What we have to do for that is go into this world setting, go to surface, and you can see this world also has a material applied to it. It's just going to be called background. As you can see right there, the color is just a gray. If you switch that to a black, as you can see, the scene also gets darker, but that's just how the world affects the scene. So the world has a color, and this color affects the scene as well. So if we put that to white, you can see the scene is way brighter than it was before. If you want to change your color of the background to something dark, of course your scene gets darker. There is a trick to change the background without changing or affecting the scene, but that's going to be more advanced. So let's just leave it at a nice gray. We could also change it to a color, maybe a nice teal or like that maybe, so it looks more fitting to the scene. Okay, so that's basically everything. You can also increase the strength of this light if you want by going back to the object data properties, this lamp icon. You can change the lamp properties. For example, the power, you can increase it to 2000, and it's just gonna make the scene a little bit brighter. Okay, I think that's everything we have to change. That's gonna be your scene. Of course, you can change the angle of this camera, for example, maybe make it like more dramatic. Go in here, maybe like that, and then rotate it down like that, and have a more dramatic scene. But I'll leave it back there. Pretty basic, but pretty easy. Okay, so that's gonna be your whole project. Of course, to save all your progress, you should, before rendering it, you should save it. So we go to File up here, go to Save As, and select a location where you want to save your project. Right in there. Okay. Okay, once you've saved it, you can just render it out. The easiest way would just be to go to up here to this bar, go to render, and then render image. Once that's done, you should see a new window that should pop up, which would look similar to the render result view right there. And once that's done, you will see your finished image. Pretty simple, but that's just going to be your first project. Of course, if you want to do more, feel free, add some more to the scene. I'll add a few more objects to make it look more interesting. And if you want to follow this video as well, I'll put it in the description. I'll probably detail out this bottle a little bit more, and then maybe adding a banana or something. Pretty simple. And yeah, that's going to be your project. Step-by-step tutorial. If you were able to follow, nice, you have a first project done. Hope you feel accomplished. Hope you like what you got. And yeah, of course you can save it, just to be sure. If you want to save your image, you go to Image, Save As, and you can save your image as well. Okay, so that's going to be your project, your first project. If you were able to follow, you can always, if you want, show me your end results. Maybe come to my stream and maybe send me a link or something. I can give you a critique if you want. Also, if you feel like motivated and you want to add more to the scene, of course, as I said before, I'm going to provide a link with a second video where I can just add a few more objects to the scene that you can follow. But if you want to call it there, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope it was easy enough. And yeah, maybe I'll see you later. Maybe I'll see you another time. If you liked the video, give it a like. If you disliked the video, maybe you had some critique, of course, you can dislike the video and tell me what you want to see done better next time. But that's going to be it. If you want to see more, you can visit my channel, see what maybe inclines you to watch. Maybe subscribe to see more of my new videos. And of course, I hope you have a great day. Let me actually show my webcam so you can see me. Hi. Yeah, I hope you have a great day, and maybe I'll see you later. So, see you. Okay, I think the ending was a bit weird. Felt quite awkward, but oh well, sometimes it just do be like that. Actually, I think I just majorly screwed up because you can see the chat in here. Maybe I'll leave it in there, maybe not. I have to see. Okay, so that's gonna be done. What I'm gonna do now is add a few more objects to the scene, and that's probably gonna be the end of this stream. Tomorrow we're gonna make a quick speed run of an object, maybe an apple, maybe something else, and once that's done, we're gonna work on the main project that I'm gonna work on like the next sessions. So let's add a few more objects to the scene. We can do recording. Actually, I'm debating whether I should use this as an actual tutorial, because I don't like having this chat in there. It just looks weird. I think I'm gonna redo this tutorial, but well, I could probably record the extended part that I could do. So actually, oh, screw it. I mean, okay, so let's do it like that. We'll skip this part, and I'll show you what I'll do the next few sessions. The new big project. I'll show you what I want to do. So let's close this. Open up my usual Blender, not this one. This one. Okay, so as you can see, this one is set up to have a chat. The last one wasn't, so that screwed up the whole thing. Well, mistakes were made, but only through mistakes you can learn. So, let me show you what I want to do tomorrow and the following next streams. Let me switch that to the image editor, and I'll show you what I want to do. So it's from a game. It's going to be a game that's going to be released in a few months, which is going to be a character from that game. The main antagonist, I think. Let me show you what I mean. I don't want to keep up this tension too much of this character reveal. Okay, let's see which ones should be the best picture to show you. Right there. Okay. I'm gonna make an image with her. Hello. Yep. This is gonna be the next big project. I can show you the last two projects I did. I basically recreated the first one. I recreated an artwork, a concept art, I think. The second one I rebuilt a sketch in 3D, added some more 3D stuff, background and all that. Let me show you the first two projects I did. And then the next big project is going to be her. I'm going to recreate her in a different pose, of course. Not just going to be like this pose, but an actual custom pose I want to create. And yep, it's going to be tomorrow and probably the next few streams. Probably going to take me like, I guess like this week and next week. That's how long it took for the last project. Let me show you the one I mean. We open the most recent character 2 right there. Don't save. We don't need these changes. There you go. That was the last project I did. If you switch to image view, camera view, and switch to rendered view. Gonna take a while to render all that. What I can do while that's rendering, pretty noisy right now, so while that's working, I can show you what sketch I was working off of. Character 2. That's the reference, right there. So I found the sketch, I thought it looked pretty cool, so I wanted to recreate it in 3D, and that's the end result. The making of the character model is on my YouTube today, uploaded today. The next one is going to be tomorrow, where I show the process, or my process, of creating this environment, the background, the water, and all the shading and her texturing. That's going to be in the tutorial tomorrow. So, as you can see, that's the sketch, and I'll show you the end result. It's right there. So this is the character model in itself, no water and all that, just the character model, and the finished image or artwork is gonna look like this. That's the finished artwork. You can see it on my Instagram as well, and I think on my Twitter as well. That's yep, that's the finished image. So I want to do this basically, not like similar to this, but I want to recreate how I recreated this sketch. Come on, where is it? There it is. This image, I want to recreate the Lady Dimitrescu, I think she's called. I want to recreate her, give her a nice pose, and like just make a fan art basically of her in the same sense how I recreated this image. I can show you the first character as well. Oh, I can't open this. Oh, can I? I think I can. Let me just open it up by opening up the file. Character 2, character lighting, it's gonna be in character 2 video. There it is. No, not character 2, it's character 1, of course. There it is. Loading, loading, loading. Taking quite a while. There it is. Let me adjust my window size. So this is the first image I did, or the first image I recreated. I had this as my concept art, and this is the final image. Let me switch to rendered view so you see what the final image looked like. There you go. That's the model. And let me show you the final render. Right there. Ta-da. So this one doesn't look as good, I think, in my opinion, than the second character I did. This one had more restrictions because I wanted to recreate this, and this one is more detailed than the sketch, so I had more freedom in the sketch version for my second character. So she looks quite different to this artwork, but I was going for speed. I think I did this character, the whole character, and I think 3 days or so. So I wasn't really giving myself enough, or like that much time in detailing everything and all that. What I changed in the second character was the hair. I think the hair was the main part that disturbed me, or like was lacking in this image. I changed that. I sculpted this hair, and in the second character I used curves to create the hair. I think curves are better suited for this type of hair. I'm still debating whether I should use hair cards for my next character, just to change it up maybe. I think we can spend a little bit more time on the newest project Maybe make it look more like the character actually looks like in-game when it comes out. Of course, if you don't know where she's coming from Resident Evil 8, I think it's now. Resident Evil 8, yeah. Resident Evil Village. That's where she's from. A trailer just came out, and one of the scenes kind of inspired me to make it like a fan art out of her. So that's gonna be tomorrow, and then probably the next 3 days, and also then the next week, maybe even the week after, just working on that. And tomorrow I'm gonna do the character model. Maybe I'm gonna work on the character model on Wednesday as well. Yeah, we'll see how we get through. But that's gonna be, I think that's gonna be the stream for today. We made the tutorial, which was a kind of fail, but well, sometimes you gotta learn. Yo, what's up, Athrun? What's up? Hope you had a great day. Hope you enjoyed your day. In where I live, there was so much snow, so it was kind of hard getting to work. Hope that wasn't the case for you. Oh, what's your question? Of course, you can always ask. Yep, so of course you now know what I'll do the next few streams. And tomorrow, of course, we're also going to do another quick sketch and also a speed run. That's going to probably fill up the first half of the stream, and then the second half going to be the project. Patiently waiting on your question, Athrun. Yep. So the first speedrun video will be up on Wednesday. Today I released a video on the second character, just modeling the character, and the second part is going to be up tomorrow. Also, if you haven't noticed, or maybe you actually have noticed, I grabbed a few more music titles. I extended my music library. I went to the YouTube Studio section of YouTube, where you can look for tracks from YouTube that are copyright free, that you can add to your streams or your videos, and I grabbed some of there. Oh, that's a good question. So I can show you what's the difference. So you mean basically the difference between a displacement modifier and a displacement node, I guess. So I can show you what's the difference. I can just remove all that. Come on. Okay, so let's work with a plane. Of course, to displace this properly, we can add more geometry by, for example, using a subdivision surface to keep it plane. We can just use this simple and then increase that, for example, to 6. Maybe even add one more to get more detail. Okay, so if you add a displacement modifier, you create a new texture. You've done that before probably, that's why you're asking. I usually use clouds to get a pretty random setting. Actually, okay, let's use clouds. So that's what the displacement modifier does. It just applies the texture that you can set in here and displaces the object itself. If you go to edit mode, you can see it. You can still edit the main object. So if you pull that up, you can see it gets pulled up right there. If you want to use the displacement node, the displacement will only be rendered in your finished render. So what I mean is, if you hide this displacement modifier and you go to your shading, shading, of course. So you can make a new displacement, no, a new shader. Let's switch to material preview. Of course, to see your displacement, we have to change a setting in the shader setting. So if you do not change the setting, your displacement textures will work like a bump texture. It will just imitate surface imperfections or displacement. If you want to actually displace the surface in your render, you have to go to this shader setting and then scroll all the way down to set. No, wait, which one is it? I think, no, it's volume. Nope, it's, come on, where is it? Viewport settings. There's a setting that lets you, dude, I'm confused. Okay, let me just add a displacement first, and then maybe the setting will be added to the settings. So we use a vector displacement node. If we plug that in, nothing happens, of course, because there's no texture applied to it. So if we, for example, use a texture, noise texture, right there. Let me just quickly add a HDRI so we see what we're doing. To get some lighting in the scene. HDRIs, this one right there. Okay, so now we switch back to object. We apply this noise texture with our factor in the height socket. You can see nothing happens. Of course, it's still rendering. But then once that's done, you can see it works like a bump map. If you would plug in the same noise texture into a bump node, we cut that and put that into that in here. And come on, there you go. It basically does the same, but not as intense. But if you then switch back to the height setting, and there's a setting. Come on, where's the setting? There's a setting that you can enable your displacement, basically. You can say that only bump should be rendered, only displacement should be rendered, or both should be rendered. It should be in your shader setting, but I don't know why it's not in here. Maybe, oh, I actually switched from Eevee to cycles because Eevee does not have displacement. So now switch to shader and you have your settings, and there you go, you have your displacement setting. If you switch that to bump, from bump only to either displacement only or displacement and bump, you can see it displaces like it would with your displacement modifier. The difference is, as I said before, in this view, but outside of the rendered view, there's nothing displaced. But if you select this displacement, it's going to displace in the viewport as well. If you go to rendered view now, it's going to do both. So I usually decide between displacement modifier or displacement a displacement node, whether or not my displacement should be very detailed or not. What I mean is, if you, for example, only have one of these subdivisions applied, you can then go in here to the main settings in the camera icon. You can switch from the feature set supported to the experimental feature set, which will give you another option in the subdivision surface setting, which is going to be in advanced. No, wait, we have to. Wait, did I switch? Okay, it's in experimental. Okay, dude, I'm getting trolled right now. What? So there should be an option that lets you, the closer you are to the surface, the more subdivision will be applied to that surface. So if you then want to make a highly detailed displacement on your surface, you use the subdivision with adaptive subdivision ticked. Oh, there it is. Okay, so you can only use adaptive subdivision without, I guess, a displacement modifier. So you can now go in here. Of course, you see no displacement. If you have adaptive subdivision applied, you can go in here, and you can also just you can go in here and then switch to rendered view. There you go. It's pretty. Of course, the texture is pretty big. So if you change, for example, the detail to something pretty high, maybe 16, and then change the roughness. Pretty rough. You can see the surface will be really rough, and you have all these small hills and creases and all that. That's going to be way easier to do using a displacement node and using adaptive subdivision than using a displacement modifier, because if you add, like, it's just more dynamic, and it's just easier to work with than having to add multiple subdivision surface modifiers and then creating the displacement modifier. Yep. So I can show you what I did for one of my characters. I added pores to her. Let me open my character. And for the pores, I used a displacement, or no, I used a bump map, but you can basically use the displacement in there as well. So what I did, let me just remove everything we don't need for this. Hide. Okay. So for her, if we switch to material preview, you can see she has all these small pores, and the pores are pretty simple. I just use a, okay, that looks pretty complex, but the pores are just gonna be in here. This is the bump texture, which is just a Voronoi texture. So if you just see this, if we just connect that, come on, load. Okay, that's the Voronoi texture. It's pretty big. You can change the way this texture is applied to this model by using a mapping and then a texture coordinate node. If you want to do that manually, you can select from vector mapping, put that into the vector of the Voronoi texture, and then going into input texture coordinate, grabbing that, and for example using generated, put that into the vector socket, and you get a certain result. These are different ways this texture can be applied to the object. For example, using, I think I used object. Yep, there you go. And that's how I got this small texture. And then I just changed the texture up a little bit, so I have not that many pores. I reduced the amount, and then I plugged that into the bump texture. I could also put that, maybe let's just do that. If you would now make a vector displacement, plug that in there, nothing changes. We can't see it anyway in the what is it, the shader preview. But if you now use, for example, a layout to make it more visible, use the color of the texture, plug that into the height. There you go. You can see it basically did the same but more intense. If you then switch to the rendered view, you can see those changes, and that's because I haven't applied a subdivision surface. The reason I didn't use a displacement modifier for this is because my model is not doesn't have a good topology. If we switch back to solid view, so if we go in here, actually, oh, she actually does. Oh, so it would actually work. So if we go in here and add a subdivision surface, put that to adaptive subdivision, it would displace the surface as if the displacement would actually create the pores for real. But I haven't used a displacement modifier because I think displacement uses more requires more performance than the bump node. So if you want to, for example, use or make pores, or you want to so what did you say? A super detailed model. The detail will be displacement modifier, node texture. Okay, so I can show you something that should be more applicable for you. What you mean? So for example, if you have let's make a new file. I'll show you what I mean. For example, sometimes you get, for example, if you download a texture, for example, from Texture Haven, you not only get the diffuse color texture, but you also get a displacement texture. So you go make it plain and then grab one of those materials. Let me just grab one real quick. I'm probably rambling and you're just waiting to get your answer. References. Nope, not references. Textures. If we, for example, use a nice leather, metal, mud looks pretty good. So, or actually, rock. Let's just use mud. So, go into 2K. First things first, of course, make the shader. Make a new one. Basic setup. Put in the textures we need. We need a diffuse texture. Put that into the base color. That's the texture. We then have a displacement. We can either use displacement, or we have a normal map. That's going to be for the bump or normal node. We use a displacement texture. That's going to be this one right there. Looks like this. Not that much displacement. We can also use, to get more displacement, use the normal map. You can see how it looks right there. So if we use that, we can go in here and apply a subdivision surface, change to the cycles, experimental, also settings, displacement and bump. Now we use a displacement, color, height, displacement. Okay, there you go. You see some displacement. Wait, adaptive subdivision. There you go. Okay, I did it. Okay, let's use the displacement map. Maybe there's something wrong with the normal map. Maybe it doesn't read that very well. So if you now increase the scale, maybe to, I don't know, maybe 10. Also increase the subdivision. Oh, actually. So the main difference of a displacement between the modifier and the texture is just you can be more precise more easily with a texture than a modifier, because you can use adaptive subdivision with the node, which you can't do with the displacement modifier. So if you want to do more detailed stuff, like for example having a brick texture and then making these bricks like have different levels of protrusion from the main wall, that's going to be way easier using the displacement node in a texture than doing that with the displacement modifier. I don't know why it's not displacing on the displacing this plane. Maybe I have to subdivide it a few times. Subdivide. Oh wait, did I? Oh, it's a material preview. There you go. Okay, let's switch that back to 1. So now you can see it. There you go. So as you can see, it displaces it. And how adaptive subdivision works is if you are right here, if you switch to wireframe, okay, you can't see it, but what adaptive subdivision does is the closer you are to a surface, the more geometry will be on that surface. So this has a lot of geometry, and the further you are from that surface, you will have less. So back there you will have less, but you can't really see it because it's set up so you can't see it basically. Using adaptive subdivision, you can add way more detail to your scene, but if you don't need that much detail, for example, if this is just a background, it doesn't take that much processing power, just because it's like adaptive and it changes to whatever you need. So if you have a character in the front and you have this as your background, it's not going to use as much processing power as if you would do it using multiple subdivisions and then using a displacement modifier. That's always going to use the same amount of processing power, no matter how far away you are from the object. That's the main advantage of using a adaptive subdivision with a displacement node than using the modifier. There's also a way to so wait, let me read that again. Sculpting super detail. So do you mean by sculpting a super detailed model, do you mean you sculpt the model and then you want to add detail using textures, and then either using the displacement modifier or using the node, or do you want to sculpt in the details as well? I guess it's the first option, I guess. If you do that, I would use subdivision with adaptive subdivision and then the displacement node, just because it takes less processing power. Yep, that was quite a long-winded explanation, but yep. So you mean the difference between, let's see, this one and this, if we switch to material preview. So you have this texture and you have this texture. You can maybe see it a little bit. You have these gray parts, you can increase the contrast so you can see it better. There you go, that's the texture. The difference is, sorry, one is going to be used for a normal map, and one is going to be used for a bump map. The main difference is, of course, the color, and also you can use both in this normal socket, so you can use the displacement modifier also by using a bump node, or you can use the normal map by using a normal map node. Then you use the UV map. You can either use this one, color into color, and then normal to normal. And You can't see a displacement. I haven't used normal maps that much. The biggest difference between a normal map and a bump map is wait, did I? Okay, let's see if we can. Okay, I know why we didn't see any changes, because it's not plugged in. So now if we go back to material preview, if we mute that, it's flat. If we apply it, you get this nice bumping or surface bumps. If you do the same with this displacement, of course, it looks a little bit different, so the result will be a little bit different. Oh, of course, it's not as... Oh, but you can see it. You have this small bumps right there. The main difference is, with normal maps, you cannot only have displacement on the normal, basically. So for this plane, it would be the z-axis. It would displace to like up or down. With normal maps, you can also have like three-dimensional displacement. So you can, for example, let me see if I can show you an example. You can have an object that, and you have a normal map that not only tells you that this vertex, for example, should be moved up here, but it should also be moved to the side. Oh, wait, there was another one. Yeah, so let's remove that. So this normal map can not only tell you that it should be pushed up or pushed down, but it can also tell you that it should be pushed to the side, up and down, and all that. So you can get more details in a normal map than you can in a bump map. Let me see if I can show you an example. Let's see. I forgot what it's called. It's not a... but I mean, it's still a normal map. Maybe I can see the node for it. Normal vector displacement. That's what it's called. Vector displacement. So what I mean is, let me pull up an example. There you go. Okay, so that's a perfect example. It's okay. So let me switch my view. There you go. Okay, so you see this image. This is a bump map. It only tells you, okay, this plane should be pulled up or down, and white means pull up to the max, black means to the down to the max. So this vector displacement not only tells you, okay, this surface should be pulled up, it should also be pulled to the side to create this mushroom, I guess. So it can not only tell this surface to be displaced on its normal, so up and down, but also like pushed in certain directions. I haven't really looked into how these are set up, or why normal maps look like, how they look like, but that's a major advantage to bump maps that normal maps and vector displacement maps have. That is that they are can not only contain the displacement on the y and x axis, but also on basically on all axes. Maybe I'm misremembering, maybe normal maps are different to vector displacement maps, but if that's the case, let me just see. Normal versus vector. If that's the case, then normal maps are basically bump maps, but set up differently. Let me just see if that's the case. Displacement off at the beginning. Okay, yeah. Yeah, as you can see right here. Vector displacement node is used to displace the surface along arbitrary directions, so basically the axis, unlike the regular displacement node, which only displaces along the surface normal. So if you, for example, sculpt a very detailed, for example, you sculpt this dude, and then you retopologize this and make a new model basically that has less geometry, you can apply or bake this displacement or this model as a vector displacement map, apply it to this geometry, which has way less detail, and it'll render as if it was as detailed as this is. That's what the displacement nodes, I mean vector displacement is for. Let me see if okay, vector displacement maps versus displacement normals. Okay, vector displacement map is not a displacement normal map. Okay, there you go. So let me just see, maybe I'll learn something new as well. Let me see normal map versus bump map. Okay, let's see. Bump maps create the illusion of depth and texture on the surface. Okay, let's just go to normal maps. Okay, so normal maps are a newer, better type of bump map, basically. There you have it. I learned something new today. Yeah, I usually just use bump maps because they do the job and they're easier to work with because I don't have to think about all the colors. I just use a black and white texture and then use a bump node. Okay, yeah, bump map uses grayscale values. Normal map uses RGB information that corresponds directly with the X, Y, and Z axis, 3D space. So blue means Z, I guess. Red means X, and green or cyan means Y, I guess. Okay. Tangent space, normal map name mixture, okay. Yep. Okay, yeah, I hope that as far as I read it from this small explanation, at least in my experience, normal maps and bump maps are pretty similar. It seems like normal maps are just more detailed than bump maps. But if you're not going for like crazy detail, both should do the job just fine. I think it's easier to create your own procedural bump maps or bumps using textures, because textures are just, for example, a noise texture is just black and white. And this way I immediately have a texture. If I plug that into the bump, plug that in, I have my bump. So I just use bump nodes and then creating my own textures, because that's just easier than, for example, like having to first create the normal map and then work with that. I think you can, if you, for example, sculpt, let me go back to solid view. Let me give this, actually we don't need to, we switch to sculpting, dynamic topology. If we then just put something in here like that, maybe some more, maybe even down, like that. We can then go to layout, make a new camera right there. So if you want to see what your normal would look like, maybe pull that up just a little bit more, like that. You can, for example, make a new texture for this. I mean, a normal material. And then into the base color, you can go into input, geometry. I used it before. Yep, normal. You can plug that normal into the base color. Switch to material preview. And that's your normal. If you would go into your render settings, I think it's in the passes. Only use normal, nothing else. Let's see what happens if we render that now. I think we have to... So if that's actually supposed to be rendered, we have to switch that to an emission shader. Position, normal, right there, color. Okay, render that. Let's see if that works. I used that once before for hair cards, using hair cards for adding hair to my character. Render result. There you go. Oh, it's still working, okay. But now, as you can see, it renders only the normal map. And if you then would save this normal map and apply this normal map to a new plane, it would display it just like how we changed this plane. It would display it just how we changed this plane, basically. If you, for example, have a character and you retopologize it, you can then use a multi-resolution modifier, and you can apply the the sculpted version to the retopologized version, which will give it like the same resolution, but then you can bake this displacement from the different subdivision levels. So the retopologized version is at viewport subdivision level 0. If you increase that to 5 and apply the shape of the sculpted version to the display like retopologized version, you can then bake this displacement using this multi-res modifier, and then you can apply this normal map in the shader editor. So yeah, so you can use blue, or you can use normal maps, but in my experience it's just more complicated to set them up. That's why I mostly use bump maps. And as it seems, the normal maps are more detailed, but I mean, of course you can go the length and create a normal map, but I just usually just use bump maps. Yeah, unlike a bump map, these types of maps can be very difficult to create or edit in a 2D software like Photoshop. Likely you will bake a normal map out of using a high resolution version of your mesh. There are, however, some exceptions for editing these types of maps. So it seems like normal maps are more precise, but also more complicated to work with. So whatever, just like you prefer. I prefer bump maps, just using black and white. Yep. I've never used a vector displacement. I don't even know how you would set that up. Let me switch back. Okay. So, yep, that's basically the difference. Hope that answered your question. If you have any more, of course, hit me. If not, then I'm probably gonna call it for today. Tomorrow, if you want to tune in, we're gonna do the next character. I'm probably not gonna start off from scratch again, as I did before, I'll just use my base mesh from my female character base mesh, just because it's easier and faster. I could do it from scratch, but that's just gonna take more time. Going or getting to the base mesh point would probably take like 1 or 2 hours, and saving that will probably save me like 1 or 2 streams. So, yep. Did you are you still working on your, I think it was art viz, or did you switch to a different project? I guess you're adding a few textures now, maybe some brick texture or something, to add a wall, adding more detail and all that. Okay, I'm glad you understood it. And I also learned something as well, so nice. Thanks for this question. So if you would look back to this character, getting this same effect of these pores, I don't even know how you would do that using a normal map. I guess you would sculpt them in there and then just render the normal map, and then applying that to the same object or the same model that it wasn't sculpted on. But the problem with that is sculpting such high detail in Blender is quite like a task, because it's so performance, like it requires so much performance, so just working with a bump map's way easier. Yep. Oh, still Arquis. Of course, if you want to have a, you can always ask me if you want to get some feedback. I'm always happy to give you some if you want. And yep. Someone showed me his Instagram account where he's posting, I think it was an art school or like something design school, and he showed me his Instagram account where he posts poster designs, I think every day. Look pretty cool. Mainly 2D, but yeah, I mean, at work I'm working mainly in 2D, so I can appreciate that as well. Very creative, but very cool. So if you, I don't know, if you want to like make a character or something after you've done your art quiz, I don't know if you're interested in characters or organic materials overall. The first like any video I uploaded today was about how I created this character, just modeling it, working off of my base mesh, how I added, or how I made this character. If you're interested in that, of course you can check it out. Maybe I thought about making one of those beginner tutorials for maybe a kitchen or something, maybe an interior. Maybe I'll do that. Or I also thought about doing some quick tips, recording those or showing them on stream, where I show some quick tips, for example, like this, what I showed you before, this adding detail but just using a plane. And then, for example, if you want to get these, okay, I'll show you, just show you a picture. Okay. Just for example, showing you how to screen cap, how you can make these corners I think I showed you before how you can make those. I learned that from Blender Guru, so I'm probably not gonna do that. Showing you how you make that. But some other stuff like how you can make easy plans that could be even useful for your ArcGIS. How you can make plans using hair particles. It's really easy and intuitive. So maybe I'll do that at some point soon. It's pretty easy. I used that in this scene actually. I made a plant. Leaf 1 and leaf 2. That's the plant. And what I used is a sphere. I applied a few hair particles to the sphere, sculpt them or brush them so they have this curve to it. And then I applied these leaf meshes to the hair particles so you can create this easy plant. Pretty easy. If you want to add some easy plants that look photorealistic to your scene, you can go to Turbo Squid. Then you can go to, let me show you. Am I still on screen? Okay. If you go to Turbo Squid, I grabbed a few free 3D models from there. You can go to 3D models and then free 3D models. What you can get from here, what will probably be interesting for you, are trees that look photorealistic. I think they're photo scanned. You can get some trees, and you can also get plants for decoration, interior plants. Let me see if I can find one of those trees. Those are not free. Those ones aren't free as well. Oh, there are the plants. I grabbed them as well. Oh. Okay, while that's loading, let's search for the trees. But as you can see, you can get these plants for free. You can just download them. I think you have to make an account, and then you can download them. And you have some nice photorealistic plants you can add to your scene. I think they come with the geometry. You can see what they come with. OBJ you can just import that using or in Blender, and then apply the textures, or they're already applied. Yeah, if you for example have a lighting you wanna recreate in your scene, if you wanna for example recreate a real ArcGIS or real architecture photo, it can be quite hard recreating the light. I had that for a character I recreated in 3D. Recreating light can be quite hard. But if you just want to get realistic lighting, you can use an HDRI. That's basically just a 360-degree photo that gives you realistic lighting, how it was when the photo was taken. Makes the details outside the interior invisible. Are you using cycles or are you using Eevee? So do you mean, for example, if you have a scene like over here, that's your house, and then you have, I don't know, like a window in here, and then everything in here, for example this plant, will be rendered, but then everything outside of this house will like be invisible? I guess is your question. If so, you could check your render settings. Maybe you've accidentally disabled your objects outside in the render. So if you disable that, you will still see them outside, but they will not be rendered in the rendered image. Otherwise, Oh, okay. Do you use yeah, that can be quite hard. Like getting enough light into the scene or into the interior, but also like not overexposing your outside objects. If you use stuff like just these lights right here, it can be quite tricky. Of course, I would use an HDRI, because then you can see how much light you get inside and how much light you get outside. And if it's not enough, maybe you have to add some more windows, or maybe if you're working off of a reference, maybe this reference has a light that's not visible in the scene or in the frame or something. Of course, I'm just speculating. Maybe if you want and you can't like figure it out, and you wanna, like, I can help you if you want. If you maybe can give me a screenshot or something. Yeah, it can be quite tricky balancing the outside lighting with the inside lighting, especially if you want to have enough lighting inside. The only thing you could add maybe to cheat it, which will probably not look that good, but what you can do is, if your object is overexposed, for example, if you have this light right here, let's remove this. I actually haven't tried that like that detailed, but if you switch that to the sunlight, for example, go to rendered, that's really overexposed. If you then go in here, let's see if that works. Maybe not. Shader editor, if we use the specularity, okay, well, that's the light is too strong. If it's not like this completely white, you can change the specularity to reduce the reflection intensity. So if we, for example, change this to a UV sphere and this maybe to 1, what the specularity does is, if we switch that to roughness 0, smooth, you can see it's nice and reflective. And then with the specularity, you can change how intense the reflection is. So this gray spot is gray, but it is on 0.5. If you put it at 0, there's no reflection. And if you put it at 1, it reflects the complete intensity of the camera, or I mean the sunlight. So if you, for example, have a cube with, I don't know, let me grab a image real quick. This okay, let me right there. You can see this image is it shines light on it. If we then, for example, increase this, let's see if that works. Maybe to 2, maybe to 5, maybe even to 10. So it's way too white. You can then use the specularity to decrease just a little bit. Actually, it's not working too well. Okay, well, that might not work actually. Yeah, but so I guess the best way to balance these two would be to either grab an HDRI that's similar to the lighting that you can see outside of the windows, and would use that. Yeah, or maybe add some more lights on the inside. I mean, you can't see the lights in the render because they're just invisible lights. So you could just add them inside as well to add some more lighting. You can see them in the reflections. So if you have a light, for example, have a light right there, make the point pretty big. You have a plane. Oh, okay, maybe. Okay, let's try that again in cycles. We increase the power to 10,000. It's pretty wide. We now use the specularity. Okay, well, let's do. Okay, that just does the same. Okay. What I wanted to show you is, in rendered view, if we have nothing, I mean, we hide the overlays. There's no light to be seen. But then if we go in here, change to metallic, for example, and roughness down, you can see it's a mirror and you can see the light in the reflection. So that's something you have to keep in mind if you want to add more lights to your interior, just to light up the scene, but you don't want to, like, you don't want the lights to be seen. Make sure that they're not visible in the reflections of anything. Yeah, so to put that into one sentence, either match the lighting of your reference to an HDRI you pick out and work with that, or use some more interior lighting. Would probably be what I would try. Maybe your materials aren't as reflective enough. Maybe that's the case. But yeah, that's all I can give you as a tip. I actually maybe want to make a video about how you can make this easy skin shader, and also how you can determine the size of these pores using vertex paint. Let me see if that works using a texture map. So if I go in here, maybe use a normal map. Noise map, I mean. Noise texture. We can then say, of course, give it more contrast. Like that. Okay, let's see if that works. So we plug that into the scale. Or let's see what it looks like without. Like that. And then color into the scale. Oh. Okay. Wait a minute. Oh, because I have to use a math node and put it to multiply 18. Okay, it still looks weird. Why does it look like that? Okay, maybe that doesn't work, I guess. So maybe that's not gonna be a video. I mean, it can still be a like easy skin shader or something. But maybe you can use the scale using some sort of map to affect it. So you can change the scale, but yeah, maybe not. Wait, what happens if we change the scale? Yeah, they get bigger. Why? I don't know. Do not know. Yep, so maybe you can try those two ideas, like using an HDRI or adding some more interior lights that are hidden. Maybe that works. Otherwise, maybe maybe if you have like tried that, like, I don't know. Maybe if you can, if that's like still not working, maybe you can give me some screenshots, and maybe there's something else you could do. But yep, I think I'm gonna call it there. Good luck on your art quiz. Hope it works. Yep, hope it works, and hope you have a good rest of your day. Maybe I'll see you next time, maybe not. But until then, enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you